All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to day two. I'm excited to have you guys here and get things kicked off. We've got a lot of stuff to cover today. We'll have plenty of time for Q&A, but I'm really excited about some of the things we're going to go over. Also have just a couple of updates for you as we get things started. So we will be diving right on in. A couple just bits of housekeeping as always when we get started. First, huge thanks to Sherry for helping manage the chat. Sherry, thank you very much. We appreciate you more than words can say. Also, want to make sure that we take a look at a couple of updates that we made last night of things that we're going to go over with you. First, thanks to Reginald for requesting a business guide on how to go ahead and launch this as a business. And why do I say that? Well, if you noticed in the replay section last night, Reginald made a request and we actually have this document ready to go. So this is in the portal. You guys can find it right now. This is if you guys have any interest and go, wow, I love this AI podcast stuff. I'd like to offer this as a service to other businesses. This is a draft business plan that you guys can use. You can see it's pretty extensive here. It's 33 pages of a draft. And again, we used AI to help us do this. I will readily admit that. But to help you get started going through and launching a podcast service actually as a business that you could do. So Reginald, thank you very much for that. That is available and you guys can download that. Again, that is directly in the resources and replays section. If my screen will reload, we'll go ahead and get there here in a minute. Never wants to work while I'm, of course, on a Zoom call. There we go. And then we do have our replay and resources document. Just as a reminder, this is that document, and this document is a live document that we update as we go throughout training. So last night we added in some more. We've got lots of document tabs here on the side. The reason for this isn't to be confusing, but it's to try to make sure that you can find whatever it is that you're looking for. So you can see you can expand and collapse different things. So we've got yesterday our Piper Custom GPT, kind of how that works, training documentation, our day one demo, the chat that we had, the actual script that we developed, a whole overview on 11 Labs SSML and how to create more tone and style in your voice, and a brand new guide that we added last night about how to use 11 Labs prompt podcast process, which is called GenSpark, and how to use that. We're going to go over that here in just a minute, but we've added that in as a full training document as well. And if we go back up to the replay and resources, you'll see here is the day one replay link. Here's our links for Piper, for the audio podcast we created, some examples of Refusion bumper music that we created. And then day two replay, you can see isn't posted yet. It will be here after training today, a few hours afterwards. But we do have the draft business plan that I just shared with you as well is right here. So it's all in the document. As long as you have a link to this document, you'll be able to find everything that you need and all the links to everything that's there. And we'll keep everything updated and posted. Just one more bit as a reminder, we have the transcripts down here as new tabs. So if you want the transcript from day one, here it is, all 30 pages of it. And if you want the Zoom chat from day one, here it is, all 22 pages of it. So you guys can go ahead and find that if you're ever looking for any of those. We put those out there as well. So you've got those. Those are tabs on the side here. And then everything that's replay or resource related will end up underneath the replay and resources tab. So hopefully all that makes great sense for you guys. Looking forward to making sure that, again, we try to keep this as simple as possible. We keep adding more and more resources, which I love doing, but that also means that there's more and more links. And so I think this model works out well. Just remember, the document links are on the left-hand side if you need them. So I see Reginald's got his hand up already. I don't know if it's something specific. So Reginald, before we go on to anything else, I'm going to ask you what's on your mind, sir.
I just wanted to say a personal thank you for responding so quickly to the request. That's all.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It worked out last night. I was able to spend a few hours on it, get it done, and I think it turned out pretty good. Again, would welcome your guys' feedback on those as we provide those resources, but I think it turned out pretty good. Had some good information in it, and while we didn't pitch this as a business service, it's absolutely the type of thing that you can add into your arsenal. I know many of you have talked about creating custom GPTs and providing those as a service. No reason you can't do that right here as well. And for the record, in case anybody wants to know, you are more than welcome to go ahead and use the custom GPT Piper as part of what you use to deliver that. I don't want you necessarily sharing Piper. In other words, please don't give Piper to your clients. But if you want to provide podcast services to your clients and you want to use Piper as one of the tools in your arsenal, you absolutely have my permission to do that. So feel free to go ahead and use that as a tool to help you guys deliver services as well. So again, my only request there, please don't give Piper to your clients. Use it as an opportunity for them to pay you so you can earn some money in the process. On that, I just want to take just a quick look at the business plan so you guys kind of know what's here. This is done as a draft, okay? And I've got my appropriate disclaimers that I need to have in front. I'm not promising you're going to make millions of dollars or anything else. It's based on a lot of different factors, but it's really, I think, done a good job of getting things laid out, literally how you can get started weeks 1 and 2, 3 through 6, and then how you continue to scale. Full table of contents, information about how to put it all together, what tool stack to use. It's been based upon what we're training you guys here, so everything should be very similar. And you can
Jonathan,
see
you're
as you,
not sharing your screen.
oh, well, it's once today. Thank you very much. I try not to do that. Let's go back to the top. So this is, I was sharing the screen here. Just a reminder again about the disclaimer that I mentioned. So sorry about that, guys. I try not to do that, but if you watch many trainings, I'm good at doing that. So we've got the table of contents. You can find anything you want as you go on through. I won't bore you with this, but feel free to take a look. And again, I'd welcome your feedback as we do that. All right, so time to dive in. Just a reminder, if you have questions, please go ahead and raise your hand. I'll call on you at the appropriate time. And if you have more than one question to ask, I just ask that you would ask one question and then go to the back of the line and let others, and then you're happy to answer as many, I'm sorry, ask as many as you have, but just one at a time so everybody gets a fair chance. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about two different ways that you can create podcasts other than yesterday. So yesterday we talked about literally creating it all through Piper, the script and everything else, going over to 11 Labs, building all that out. Hopefully that all made sense. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have those. But today we're going to talk about two additional ways that you can do this that may or may not fit your needs. But I want to make sure that you're aware of them because they're both different styles to do it. So the first is in 11 Labs itself. So if we go into 11 Labs, again, the service that I recommend for voices, it does a great job. And again, in my mind, the best service to actually train your voice on. If you go over, you notice they've got a podcast feature. We just briefly touched on this yesterday, but you can click on podcast in 11 Labs, and this can be really a fast way to create podcasts. So one of the things we talked about in the business plan that you guys may not have seen is possibly creating sample podcasts for people to be able to see. Maybe you're in a vertical. Let's say you're working with chiropractors. You might want to create some sample podcasts. One of the fastest ways to do it is to literally come into 11 Labs like this, and you can either upload a document, you can import from like a blog post if you had, or you can use an existing project that you've set up. But literally, we can go over to Piper and we can ask Piper for data, or if we want to, we can actually go ahead and I can upload training data directly to this. So earlier today, I did a little bit of research and I guess I didn't save those. Let's go over here. So we're going to talk in a moment about a podcast comparing Manus, GenSpark, and Perplexity Labs. So what I'm going to do here real quick is I'm going to go ahead and download these. Let's see here. Where were those documents? Bear with me. I saved the documents, but not necessarily everything else. Yeah, let's see here. Recent. There we go. Do. And of course, they're not. Oh, there it is. There they are. So let's download this one. And let's download Perplexity. So these I created beforehand. These I literally used Google Deep Research to go ahead and create. And we needed some data that we were going to use in our next thing we're going to look at, which is Google Notebook LM. Sorry, my ADD brain just went in and had a brain fart there. Google Notebook LM. But we can also use these in 11 Labs. So let's say we wanted to create, in this case, a podcast episode all about Manus. Well, I can take that report and literally go in here and take my Manus document and I can upload that directly to here. Now, this Manus document that I've got is many pages long. You can see here as we look at the research, there's lots of research in there. You could research any topic that you wanted. You could research, in this case, I did it just on Manus, but you could research an industry, anything that you thought appropriate. You can go ahead and upload those documents, and then we choose what do we want from that. So there's my Manus Entrepreneur's Guide. I want it to be a conversation or do I want it to be a bulletin? How long do I want it? So in this case, let's make it a conversation, and let's say we want to go long. And we're going to go ahead and pick that. We then can choose who our voices are. You can, by the way, if you hover, you notice how it changes to a play icon, and you won't be able to hear this, but you can go ahead and pick who those voices are and listen to them and see if you like them. And then podcast language, I'm going to choose English because that's what I speak. And I literally then can click generate. And we'll see here, it won't take very long. And it's going to review that entire document, all of that downloaded data that we have, that deep research, and it's going to create a podcast from that. So unlike yesterday when we used and had Piper actually write our whole script, in this case, Manus, or I'm sorry, not Manus, in this case, 11 Labs is actually going to write our script based upon the data we gave it. Now, this could be part of a service that you offer as well. Imagine doing research and taking blog posts and articles and speeches and all that and putting that together and creating documents that create a podcast. You can see we're already 50% done, and I've just been flapping my gums for a minute here. It doesn't take very long. I will, when this is done, I will download this and share this. It's hard to go ahead and play everything over the Zoom, but this is going to be done in just a moment, and we're going to have an entire podcast back and forth conversational between two people, in this case, AI avatars, all about this. And it's really, really amazing. I love Descript, and we're going to take a look at Descript here in a minute. I see some comments about that, but Descript won't do this same thing. So here we go. Let's take a look, and you can see we've got our podcast done. I don't know exactly how many words it is, but it's, let's download it here a minute. I have to play the audio here to start it, and then I can download it. Hang on. There we go. Now I'm going to download it. And I'll go ahead and upload this to a Google Drive and then put a link in so you guys can try that out as well. So let's go ahead and just upload that real quick. File upload. And let's rename this so we know what it is. 11 Labs podcast demo on Manus. That way we know what it's about. We'll go ahead and upload that real quick. In just a moment here, I'll have a link, and then I'll be able to copy that link. Hang on. It's trying to find it. See, it's locating here. I'm impatient. We sometimes needs just a minute. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and share this. Make sure it's available to anyone link. We'll copy that link. And I'm going to go ahead and put that directly in the system. Now, hang on. It doesn't look, it looks like 8 seconds. Let's go check this real quick. Yesterday we had a problem. I uploaded one that wasn't long enough. It just downloaded that first part. We have to play the whole thing. So I'm going to do that after training. I don't want to have to play through it all right now. You have to play through it once, but then I'll be able to download the entire thing and we'll get that over to you guys so you guys can see how that works. But super, super easy. Hopefully you can see how easy it is there that we
Hey,
can
Jonathan,
literally, yeah,
do you have to be on the tab for that to run?
no, it already ran. It's done.
No, but you just said that you need to run it once. Does that mean you have to
Oh,
listen to
I
it?
think I need to play through it once. Yeah, it's what I need to do. I'm guessing. I'm not 100% sure. It just didn't work, so I'm guessing.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so we'll get it. I'll put the link in, I guess is what I want to say. We'll get it out there. It is obviously created at this point in time. It just didn't want to download for whatever reason. But again, it's as easy as going to podcast, uploading whatever content you've got. So we just did one on Manus. Let's do one more here in a minute just to show you how easy. Let's do one on Perplexity Labs. We'll do the same type of thing. We want it conversational. We want it long. This time, let's make it between, I'll actually use my voice for one of them, and we'll use Jessica. We'll auto detect the language, and we'll say go. And it's now going to go ahead and create one. And as you remember, notice I picked my voice. This is the voice that I trained in 11 Labs. So we talked yesterday about even interviewing yourself. You could do this same type of thing. We'll let this go ahead and generate. And again, hopefully you can see how simple it is, and we'll then get them downloaded and linked. So that's one way to do that. And again, very fast, very simple. And I would recommend this type of service to, especially when you're trying to get a client on board. Imagine being able to have them pick a topic. So I could be talking to Sherry, and let's say Sherry was a prospect of mine. And Sherry's like, I don't know, maybe I don't want to do this. Well, Sherry, tell you what, give me a topic and let me create a sample podcast for you, and literally go into 11 Labs, do that in a few minutes and get it back to them. And hopefully, if it's their topic, they're going to be super impressed and go, okay, maybe this is something that they want to do. So that's 11 Labs. Again, we'll come back here in a moment. It's almost done generating that second podcast already. So let's go ahead. I see some questions about what would you charge for this. We'll answer that when we get to Q&A, so make sure you bring that up when we get there. The next thing I want to take a look at is using Notebook LM. Now, most of you are probably familiar, I don't know, but if you go into Notebook LM, you can create a new notebook. And by the way, Notebook LM you can use entirely for free. You actually don't need to pay anything. You can go ahead and create a new notebook. And when you create a new notebook, much like with what we just did in 11 Labs, we need to provide Notebook LM with data that we have. So for example, I have a file that I just downloaded. You just saw that, the Manus file. Let's go ahead. Oops, it is a doc which isn't going to like, so let's go into Google Docs because I'm pretty sure I have it there. Hang on. There's Manus right there. So I can just literally go in and add that in. Now, how did I get that? I did my deep research. And after I did my deep research on Manus, I went ahead and clicked on Export to Docs, and it went ahead and created that as a Google Doc. Then I was able to simply add that in right here. Now I could do the exact same thing if I want. I can go ahead and generate a podcast based on this. The nice thing about Notebook, the big difference between Notebook and 11 Labs is I can do it on multiple data points. So in 11 Labs, as you guys saw when we went into 11 Labs here, almost done, we were only able to upload one document. We were not able to upload multiple documents. Not a problem, but obviously that's something we need to be aware of. And that was part of, again, sorry, I'm trying to see if I can download that. I shouldn't get distracted. But we can only download one document at a time. So we didn't have the opportunity to do multiples. But when I'm in Notebook LM, I can add an additional. I can create one out of this. I can go over here and it says generate deep dive conversation. They used to call it a podcast. Now they call it a conversation. I can even customize this by putting in prompts in here. By the way, this is a great use to go back to the custom GPT. If we go back into our GPT here in Piper, we can actually ask Piper to write us instructions for Google Notebook LM. Watch this. So let's go ahead and add in our Manus document that we just had. Manus. There we are. And let's try a prompt out. I want to create a podcast based on the attached document using Notebook LM. Please provide me with customization instructions that I can give to Notebook LM when I have it create this podcast. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm uploading the document so that Piper can see this, telling it what I want to do. And now, in addition to just verifying and helping me out, it knows that we're going to do this in Google's Notebook LM because I told it, and it's actually going to give me something that I can put directly in here in this customize the audience overview. So let's go back into Piper real quick. Here we are. It's a little slow today. Gotta love ChatGPT, but it's kind of laying everything out here a minute. Notebook LM creative instructions, and here we go. Sorry for the slowness. Unfortunately, we can't control that very easily. Let's wait here a minute. We'll watch it. This reminds me so much of dial-up internet when I was a kid. Anybody else ever have that feeling? It's like watching ChatGPT is like watching dial-up internet where it's one line at a time. It's like, oh my goodness, come on. So, a couple things while this is thinking, let me go back into Notebook LM. So I saw, can you control the length? To a certain extent, there's a default and a shorter and a longer. You can see the buttons right here on my screen. I'm going to choose longer just so we get that. It's going to get a longer podcast. I'm going to show you one I did in just a minute. I've never tried before and got this, but I got a 47-minute, I think it was, podcast out of Google Notebook LM. I'm going to show you that in just a moment and how I did that. We used multiple documents, by the way, for that in order to make that happen. Let's go back to Piper here. All right, here we go. We don't want 6 episodes, though. I just want one episode based on Manus and the attached document. Please go ahead and give me the customized text to use with Google Notebook LM. Unfortunately, as we know, chat doesn't always listen the way we want. That's all right. So going back to Manus, we have, as you go over here, on the right-hand side is where we're going to create this conversation. I can just click generate and deal with all the defaults, but I want to click on customize because then I get to choose my length and I can go ahead and focus on specific things. In this case, we're just going to say how entrepreneurs should use Manus to save time, make more money, and deliver more value. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and generate that. We're going to let that generate. I've already done one to show you how this is going to work. So while this is generating, we're going to go back out here and I'm going to load up this tab that I created earlier. Notice this one was Manus. This one is about Manus, Perplexity Labs, and GenSpark, 3 different AI agents that are out there. Notice in this case, not only did I add in the Google Docs, trust me, they're in here, but I went out and I added a lot more. Well, how do you add more? It's really, really simple. You click on this Discover tab. So I uploaded the 3 documents that I'd created by clicking Add in the Google Docs. Those are in there. But I then click Discover. And this is one of the really cool features of Google Notebook LM. I can now pick a topic and have it pull things. So let's say I want to say Manus versus GenSpark versus Perplexity Labs. I can type in anything I want. It's now going to go out and search the web and find content for me. Again, this is a great way for you to create podcasts for yourself or for clients because you can go out and grab this. So let's see. We like Perplexity Labs. That looks like a good one. I don't want to select all the resources. I want to review them. Agent Showdown, Manus versus ChatGPT versus Perplexity. It's not exactly what I'm looking for. GenSpark versus Manus, that looks good. Notice that's a Reddit article that it's bringing in. Manus Perplexity Scholars, that might be okay. Manus Use Studies, that sounds good. This is not related at all. Will you get a job after GenSpark? It's not comparing. Understanding Perplexity. All right, so that looks like about all that we've got. So I'm just going to import those 3 sources. And just like that, it's actually bringing those into my knowledge base. And were I to recreate a new podcast, I would have that. You can see over here, I already created one. It was 46 minutes and 51 seconds. Now, if you've ever listened to one of these are great, but the downside to these is Google Notebook LM always uses the same 2 voices. They're great voices, but every podcast, every audio overview is done in those same 2 voices. And that's one of the areas where the 11 Labs situation is so much better because of the fact that we have the opportunity in 11 Labs to be able to actually pull and change voices. We can't do that. So since we have the benefit of Notebook LM and multiple content, notice I had it use all this content other than the 3 I just added to create this podcast. What do? This is where Descript comes in, and this is what I want to show you. So I went ahead and download this. We're literally just going to go ahead and download that file. No big deal. And now I'm going to change my share, and I'm going to go over and I'm going to load up Descript a minute. So Descript, if you are not familiar with it, Descript is a audio and video editor. The nice thing about it, we talked a little bit about it yesterday, is it allows you to literally edit things by using text instead. So I don't have to learn how to be an editor. I'm going to create a new project and just show you how to do that. I already did one here in case we run into trouble, but let's create a new project. And we want to do an audio project this way because there is no video. And it's really easy. We just upload the file. Here's our WAV file. You can see we're going to go ahead and upload that in. And then it's going to come up, it's going to start transcribing right away, but it's real important. You can fix this later, but it's a lot easier if right up front you tell it how many speakers there were. So we know there were two speakers, right? Because it was a man and a woman, those voices in English. And if I specify that up front, it's going to work on detecting those speakers, and that'll be really important for our next step. So I'm going to say done. We're going to let this cook for a minute, and you'll be able to watch, and I'll keep chatting while we do that. You can see down here, it's kind of showing what's going on. It's detecting speakers and it's preparing the transcript. It's literally going through that entire WAV file and creating a transcript of it. And I want to do this live because I want to show you how powerful this tool is. There's lots of things we can do with Descript, but this, in my mind, is one of the most powerful ways we can do it because once we have the script, which we're going to get here in a minute from Descript, now we can either use Descript or Perplexity. I'm sorry, not Perplexity, or 11 Labs. I've got too many things on my brain. We can use Descript or 11 Labs to then recreate the audio in any voice that you want. You can train your voice on in Descript. You can train it in 11 Labs. You can use other voices. And again, now you have that opportunity to pull things together. One of the great ideas we had yesterday was, what about if we'd have Jonathan interview an AI Jonathan, or you interview an AI you? Well, here'd be a great way to do it because you're going to be able to pull this script out and literally you'll be able to go back through, and we have to identify speakers here a minute. There we go. Hang on. So this is, you guys can't hear it. I apologize, but this is Google Notebook LM notebook. Did I put book LM mail? So that's the male voice. It's playing at my ear. I apologize. You guys can't hear it. I'm going to identify that as the male. Now, this is the Notebook LM female. And I need to label them. You'll see why here in just a second. This is also the Notebook LM female. It's another clip. And probably, yep, another one from the male. So now look what happens as soon as we do that. Did you guys notice what happened here? This whole screen changed. And now it's labeled each of those. And this is why that's so important. Instead of having the entire transcript, which is great, now we have the entire transcripts by speaker. And this is so helpful because now I can export this and I can use this in, again, I could replace it here in Descript if I've trained my voice. I can actually go and move this over to 11 Labs and paste it into a script. I can export the whole thing. There's so many things I can do, but now we've taken that incredibly powerful feature that Notebook LM has, that ability to create really engaging, wonderful podcasts. If you guys haven't listened to these before, they're really, really good, and we're able to change the voices. And that to me is what's so popular. Let me go back and share my screen here and get back on the right spot. So we're able to take the, like I said, the stuff from Notebook and share it. And that's where the power really lies because now we can put voices, any voice that we want, essentially into these podcasts that are generated. So I hope you can see today. Yesterday, we spent some time on Piper and walked through how to create everything. And I still think that's a great exercise. I hope you guys went through that last night. But if you're looking for shortcuts, and I know some of you are, and that's okay, I live there too, we can create these same podcasts or similar podcasts by finding and using deep research data. Again, if you're not familiar with it, you can go to Google Gemini for deep research. You can go to Grok for deep research. You can go to Perplexity for deep research. Let me just show you. You can even do it in ChatGPT. So let's just pull up a general ChatGPT window. If you go in here, notice you've got Run Deep Research as an option. You type in any topic that you want, and it'll do deep research on it. I can do the same in Gemini by putting it in and click on the deep research button. That'll enable that. I can do this in Perplexity by going over and clicking in the middle tab here that's called Research. So I can do that and get that out of Perplexity. I can also do it out of Grok, if you guys are familiar with Grok. Grok has two features. You can either deep or deeper search. I recommend you use deeper search and it'll work. And you can use any one of those to go ahead and do that research. You also, if you want to, well, I don't know, I would waste the credits on it. Actually, I guess you don't have to anymore. You can come over to Manus and you can actually click on their chat window now. Manus won't charge you a thing to run that research here, and it's going to do pretty good research. It's not going to be as good as its agentic research, but again, it's going to give that to you and give you that opportunity. Since we were talking about it, we can also take a look at GenSpark. If you haven't done GenSpark, you can do research here, just clicking on that. Multiple ways that you can create that. And again, all of these tools you can get started for free. Most of them, I should say, not all of them. And then last but not least, if you really want a lot of stuff, you can, in addition to Perplexity Deep Research, you can actually use Labs and it will create even more stuff for you. So lots and lots of options for deep research. But once you have that, now I can go into 11 Labs and I can create that podcast just by uploading documents. Or I can take those same documents and I can upload those into a Google Notebook LM. Oops, so we go back to the Manus where I just did that. The big difference between the two is that the podcasts in my mind that Google Notebook LM creates are slightly better, not massively, but slightly better. And Google Notebook LM allows you to take multiple documents and create a podcast off that. So hypothetically, we created, well, you can see it's creating one right now here. It's still generating this one on the Manus document. I could create one on my Perplexity document. I could create one on my GenSpark. Then I could even go further. And this is where it gets really cool. If I want to add in these new documents, let's go ahead and add in, let's see, we had Manus. So there's my Perplexity one. And let's add in my GenSpark. There we go. So inside of Google Notebook LM, I can now turn these on or off. So when this is done, I could turn off GenSpark and then I could have it create a podcast based on just Perplexity and Manus. I could then turn off Perplexity and do one on Manus and GenSpark. I could turn off Manus and do one on Perplexity and GenSpark. So you can see how you can create a lot of different stuff and then I can turn them all on and create one on all of those. So Notebook LM gives you just tremendous flexibility. The downsides to Google Notebook LM is one, you have to have a tool like Descript then to convert the audio into spoken file so that we can then use that in 11 Labs to recreate the audio. And as you can see over here, it's longer. It takes longer, but you're going to get a much longer podcast too. When we did this over here, if I can find my podcasts, and I'm not sure where they are off the top of my head, let's see if we can find them here. I may or may not be able to find them quickly. They're around. I just have to figure out where they went and got saved to. And I'm not seeing that right now. We'll find them later. But these were maybe 10-minute long podcasts as opposed to 30, 40, 50, 60-minute podcasts being created over in Notebook LM. So a bit of a difference between those two different tools. Again, how would I use them? I would use these to, especially if I was creating a business, a service, I would use these to create industry specific podcasts for like a chiropractor. That way, when I go and talk to the chiropractor about doing a podcast, I can actually give them a sample and let them do that and hear it and see how all that works. Again, the other thing is if you got somebody skeptical, you could actually have them give you a topic and you could create a sample podcast in 11 Labs or in Notebook LM and have that created and share that with them at any point in time. So, all right. I'm sure we're going to have some questions on that. Let me uncheck my screen. We're going to go to Q&A and try to answer any questions you guys have about that. Just a reminder, tomorrow, now that we've talked about multiple ways to create these, tomorrow we're going to be talking about how we actually go ahead and publish these and get these ready for publication. So that'll be tomorrow in day 3. But let's dive into questions. Jaqueen, you are first. What's on your mind?
Hi, Jonathan. Hi, team. I'm a little confused. I was with you until you got to the end and you said, then you have to take these and put them in Descript. The part where I'm confused is when you're doing all of this in Notebook LM,
Hmm.
and it decides that there should be two speakers and all the data that's in there, is it using all of that data and using
Hmm.
all of those words to create the
Well,
podcast? I'm
it's
confused. That's what I'm confused about.
good question. No, and I didn't explain. So I'm glad you asked, Jaquine. You've always got great questions. I appreciate that. So if we go into Google's Notebook LM and we take a look, I'm going to go leave one of these since that one's working. Let's go back into here. I have lots of sources in here. When I
Mm-hmm.
had it create this podcast, I went ahead and it used all of the data that was in here, less the three that I just added when I showed you. So it used this less three. And what it
Uh-huh.
did is it basically read all of that, Jaquine, and said, okay, how would we put together a podcast based upon those documents? And so it basically used that as like, if you can imagine, like its own podcast researcher that said, read these 17 documents and then create a podcast. And it does
Okay.
so in a way that creates a back and forth conversational podcast, but does not mean that every word is going to be included that was in the data. The data is there to basically inspire the writing of the podcast.
Okay. So it's using that data as a repository data that it's
Correct.
referencing to create the podcast. And then
Correct.
it makes based on, and I don't remember this part, but based on how you set it up, whether you said you want one speaker or two speakers, then it, after it does the analysis of the repository, comes back, creates the podcast, and then determines speaker one versus what speaker two is saying. Is that what you said?
It actually does all that behind the scenes. So it's literally going to go ahead and create all that. And then what we need to do once we have that, as you saw, I downloaded that. Let me go back into Descript here real quick here a minute, just so I can share. Let's see here. Google Descript. There we go. So then I imported that into Descript. And when it
Uh-huh.
imported it, identified the entire transcript. But then if you remember, we talked about identifying the speakers. And
Mm-hmm.
based upon that, it went through and I just named because there's no names, they're AI speakers. So I called it Notebook LM male and Notebook LM female. And
Uh-huh.
you can see now it's got that whole transcript done by individual. Now, there's a couple ways I can do that. I can use Descript to go ahead and revoice these essentially, put AI voices. Or what I would do is I would go ahead and take these and I would go back into Notebook LM. And if you, no,
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, not scratch that, go back
Oh.
into 11 Labs. Sorry,
Oh.
go to the studio in 11 Labs and say I want to start from scratch. And here now I would start pasting in those bits from, and I lost it. Where did, oh, it's because, sorry, you're still looking at Descript and I'm looking at 11 Labs. Hang on. Let's adjust the share. I can't share two apps in one window, unfortunately. So I'm back in 11 Labs, and now I'm going to literally start pasting in my script. That's not the script. Let me grab it real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of that inside a Descript, come
Uh-huh.
back here and paste it in. And then based on this, I get to pick a speaker. So I can say, I want that to be me at that point. And just like that, it's now going to assign that when it creates this to me. I would paste in each of those lines, or I could pull it in all as one document
Oh.
into this, and then
Oh.
I have to just label it. The downside is you do have to label it. So if I pull it in as you can pull the whole document in, that's fine. But then I have to
Uh-huh.
go through and label each line. So it does take a minute because you're going to have to go back and forth and label the speaker for each one. It won't automatically identify that.
Okay, so when you were in was it Descript just now and it
Yep.
showed the and and it showed female, male, when you put that over in 11 labs, you're only copying the words. You're not copying male, female, male, female. Is that what you
Right,
were
because
saying?
correct, because that won't do any good. So I can export this. I can click export in Descript and I can export a transcript right up here. And I can
Mm-hmm.
literally export this and it'll export it to like a text file or something like that.
Oh, and then when you get on the other side to 11 labs, is it going to say the word male and then you change it to a person's voice?
So let's go ahead and show you. I just copied it all to the clipboard. If it works well, there's the whole thing. So I just pasted it in just that fast. And then as you can see, it's labeled at the beginning, Notebook LM Mail. And
Uh-huh.
so what I would actually do is I would actually go through and I would pull this into a Google document and
Uh-huh.
remove that because it's going to be a pain to go ahead and highlight that and delete that every time I want to do it. I can, but then
Right.
I've got to go through and delete. It would be easier. So let me pick
Okay.
another person here.
Okay. I got
Am I
you on
making
that.
sense? Okay.
It does, except for the part where then when you delete all of them, then you got to go back into 11 Labs and
Hmm.
assign a voice to
Yes,
every line item.
correct. That's the
Oh my
only way to
gosh.
change voices right now.
Oh,
So
geez.
now, if you don't want to do that, that's okay. That's when we're going to go back to our 11 labs then. If you don't want to do that, then just come here into 11 labs and click on the podcast feature, upload your document that you want,
Uh-huh.
and then go ahead and have it create it from here. Then it's done automatically.
Okay, but then how does Chris and Jessica know which line is theirs?
It just automatically figures it out. It goes back and
Oh,
forth.
oh, okay. I'm gonna have to try that tonight
Yeah,
to
so
make
so
sure.
if I could figure out where in the world those went when I created them, and I'm just not sure at the moment where they went. They're somewhere in here. Let's see if I can find them real quick. Studio is not there. 3 minutes ago, that might see what that is here. Nope, that's just the one I was just working on. 26 minutes ago. So there's one right here, I think. No, that's got to be generated. What is this? Well, I don't want to waste our time trying to figure it out,
Uh,
but this is where no, these are the ones I just did. So there, that's them right here. So you can see as I go down, it's got different. So see, it's got C here and J here. So it did
oh,
Chris and Jessica, Chris and
and it
Jessica.
it did that automatically.
Right, exactly. So,
And how does it know that though?
I told it I wanted a conversational one and I wanted
Uh-huh.
it to be two people. And then it automatically figured it out from there. So I go into podcast, I upload
Uh-huh.
my training document. So the
Uh-huh.
one I didn't do is I didn't do GenSpark. So let's do GenSpark. I want it to be a conversation.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And I could do default short or long. I went long.
Uh-huh.
And then I picked my voices and I picked different.
Uh-huh.
So I went, Chris, I'm going to pick myself this time instead. So we'll do myself and Jessica and then generate. That's all
So
I need to do.
basically, what it's doing is arbitrarily looking at the data in that document and saying this person's going to say this versus this person's going to say this arbitrarily.
Yes and no. They're
Is it?
they're not
No.
they're not pulling they're not necessarily using the same words from the document you upload.
Oh,
That's just reference material. They're basically it's like Jaquine, if you and I were taking English class together and we had to read a book and you and I were picked to do a joint book report, we wouldn't necessarily read passages out of the book in the book report. You and I would read the book. Then we would get together and sit down and say, all right, we need to put together a book report. I'll say certain things, you say certain things. And there may be a spot where we'd quote the book, but most of that book report would not be regurgitation of the material. It would just
oh.
be about the material, if that makes sense.
Okay, so this is counteractive to what we did yesterday when we uploaded the script and it did it verbatim.
Right. Yesterday
Okay,
was creating your script. Depends on how much control you want.
okay,
If you want total control, then we need to start with Piper like we did yesterday. We need to
okay,
create our scripts and then we need to paste our script in here. That gives you
okay.
total editorial or whatever we want to call it,
Right.
production control. If
Oh.
you're like, I just want it to be good and I want it to be on this topic,
Mm-hmm.
essentially it's almost the same. Instead of using Piper though to write the script, 11 Labs is writing the script for you. We're essentially replacing Piper with 11 Labs, and when we do it this way,
And Notebook
or
LM is
Notebook
also
LM,
writing
right?
the script. So
Correct.
basically, even if you're going to go either of those two routes, before you actually do the voices, whatever, you need to read to make sure something crazy isn't in there.
Well, you don't have that option. They don't give you the script before they do it. They just create
No,
it.
no, no. I mean, after it's created and before
Oh
you
yeah.
actually add voices, you as the producer
Well,
needs
but
to
you're
actually
not.
read everything
You're yeah,
that
but
it said is.
not really. No, because it automatically adds the voices. When you use 11 Labs or Notebook LM, you don't get the script to review. It literally creates it with the voices. It's all done. You don't have the
Right.
opportunity.
Okay. Okay. So even if let's say Notebook LM and it creates it with the voices, but then before you produce it, you should read it for making sure it's not saying something crazy.
But you can't read it until after it's done. That's what I'm trying to say. I think your order is out. It's created before you have an opportunity to review it.
Okay, and then after it's created, then you can read it.
Well, no, because you can
What?
read it if it's done. Well, okay, we're going to have to go on in just a minute here. If it's done
Okay.
in 11 labs, either way, 11 labs or Notebook LM, it's going to take your data, the book we read, it's going to create your book report
Well,
or your podcast.
I'm on point with that. Okay.
When it happens in 11 labs or it happens in Notebook LM, it's automatically going to create it and assign the voices that you picked to that. You have
I'm
no
okay.
opportunity to review that. In
Okay.
11 labs, when it's done, you can actually see the transcript so you could read it. In Notebook LM, you can't see the transcript. It's not provided. You just get the audio file. That's where you need to then take that audio file and bring it into Descript if you want the transcript.
And that's where you see it.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Good question. Sorry. Lots of moving parts today, obviously. So thank you very much for that. Deb, you're up next. What's on your mind?
Hi, Jonathan. Could we talk some about the deep research part of it?
We sure
Um,
can. What would you
and
like to
like,
know?
I haven't really delved into deep research, so I don't know if, like, I'm aware that you can go and choose that model, right, on the different places that you talked about. But do you have any best practices on the instructions to give it? Are we writing like a prompt that it goes in there? Are we just saying, I want to know all you can tell me about starting a saltwater fish tank?
That's a great question. So, a couple different ways we can do it. Let's go back and share my screen here a minute again. So, deep research is really pretty intelligent overall. In other words, it does a good job of figuring out where we want to go. So, I'm going to go ahead just for ease of use, and I'm going to go into Gemini. We'll go ahead and start a new chat here. You can use, and this really applies, Deb, to any deep research you're using. So it doesn't matter which one you want to use.
Okay.
You're going to go to deep research and you're going to really type in here what it is that you want done. What I find, and I will give you guys a prompt. I just posted one in the Facebook group the other day. I actually have an entire deep research kind of prompt you can follow, kind of like my perfect prompt framework.
Yeah.
I don't have that saved at the moment, but I will add it in the replay. I'll add it in the resources for you guys. But you're basically going to come in here and you want to, for deep research, you want to tell it what you want researched, why you want it researched, and what type of format you want back. So in this case, if I'm doing it for a podcast and you want to do it on saltwater fish tanks, I might want to say, please do deep research on a saltwater fish tank for the purposes of providing background data to 11 Labs or Notebook LM to create an AI generated podcast for an audience of people interested in starting a saltwater fish. That's what you
Okay.
would type in here, and then you would click go, and it would create that based upon that.
Okay. That's great. And then what you're doing is you're taking that document, and that document is what you were feeding in, like the Mantis document that you were doing,
That
and putting
writes.
it, like if I want to do the notebook thing, I could put that deep research in, and if I found other sources or I had other information about that I
You can
wanted,
add, yeah, anything you want. Yeah.
okay, I
Yep.
can plug
Yes.
that in, and then have it do the podcast, the conversation
Correct. Yep.
in notebook. Okay,
Yep.
great.
Yeah. So, and it really, Manus and Notebook are similar in that there's just a few differences we talked about. Manus, you get one document. Now, the good news is you could combine, let's say you came up with four different documents on saltwater fish tanks. You could combine them into one PDF and upload that into 11 Labs and let it create a podcast off that. Or you could upload all four files separately into Notebook LM.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I sort of like your what you've done in the past with Notebook LM, where you're able to put all the different documents into Notebook LM, and then you could turn it on and off as to like what you want to use. Like if you label your documents the right way, like if you're like,
Then
oh,
it's
this is for
really
beginners,
powerful.
this is
Correct.
for advanced, this is for feeding fish, this is for coral. And like if I don't
Right.
want to talk about coral, I turn coral off and I only use, and I'm using this fish example to take it away from it being a tech example. Um,
Yeah.
you know, okay, that's
But
great.
yeah, I mean, I could go into here then, and so I've got lots of Mana stuff. Then I've got some GenSpark stuff, and I could grab those particular ones, and I could literally say these are the three documents I want you to use, and I want you to create another audio overview of that for me.
Okay. And these documents these sources that you brought in, did they all come from deep research or did you get them other
No.
places too?
So I did deep research at first, and then if you remember, I clicked on Discover,
Yes.
and then I typed in Discover, and it went out and found things. So
Okay, perfect.
just to show you how that would work, let's go and start a brand new one here so we're not quite as confusing. So I'm just gonna click on Discover Resources here, and we're gonna type saltwater fish tanks for beginners. And you may not want to do it for beginners, but let's say I do.
No,
So
I did.
then,
I think we should.
yep, then it's going to go out and it's going to look for these documents. Now, one of the things we haven't talked about, if I want to really confuse everybody, we can actually take this deep research information and feed it into Manus too. You could actually take and compile it in here, export it out as a PDF, and then feed that into Manus to create your podcast. So lots of things we could do.
Okay,
So let's say here we've got these all look really quickly as I look at them. These all look like they're probably pretty good. So I'm just going to import them all. There we go. And you can see it's going to literally pull those in as basically background data as resources that are available for us.
great. And I'm
And
just going
then
to
I can do what I want.
stop you here for 1 second for everybody else in the audience, Jonathan. And this is, I know very little about saltwater fish tanks, but this is a potential client that I might have. So this
Yeah.
is how we could build our knowledge around a topic that we don't know that much about.
Yeah. I mean, let's say
Okay.
let's say that, I am a saltwater aquarium store. I sell all the stuff and the
Yeah.
fish and all that. And you say, you need a podcast. And I go, man, Deb, I don't have the time, and I don't want to deal with it. And you go, well, tell you what, could I create one for you and show you what it would work like? And if it makes sense, you could just pay me and I can create them for you. Well, I go, sure, why not? And then you could literally come in here and not only do this, but you could add all kinds of information
Yeah.
in and you can create those conversations. The last part I want to hit on that we just mentioned that again, just to further complicate, sorry, but you could also take this and I can go down here and I could ask it to create a detailed document that I could feed into 11 Labs. So I could do simple as I want to create a podcast with 11 Labs on the data that you have here. Please create a detailed overview of the documents here that I can feed to 11 Labs to allow it to create an AI generated podcast. This document should be comprehensive and detailed. All right, so we'll do that. And it's in this case, it's using Gemini, but it's only using these documents we have over here. It's not going out to the internet and grabbing anything else. It's only using this. And you can see it's going to go ahead and create this. And when we're done here, we could literally take this over to 11 Labs and create the script with that as well. Because there's some really good stuff in here. So let's let this finish up here a minute.
Yeah,
It's
this is
still
amazing.
going.
Thanks for walking through this.
Yeah, no, this is why I love the Q&A because I can talk till the cows come home, but it doesn't necessarily make sense. And so if we get real applicable stuff like this, it's great. I come right here and I can click copy. So super easy. And I'm just going to go over and create a new Google Doc. You can do this in any format you want. And I'm going to paste it in. I got 12 pages. That's plenty to create a podcast off of. So we'll just call this saltwater fish. And I'm going to go ahead and download this as a PDF. All right. Then we can go over to 11 Labs. And again, we're in the studio. We can do it from home or in the studio. We can click create a podcast. It's the same file. We're going to upload this content. We're going to upload saltwater fish. Let's say in this case, instead of that, we want it to be a bulletin. It's going to be a different style. And I can say I want it to be a default bulletin and close that. And then for the voice, we'll use my voice again and say generate. So now it's going to go ahead and do this. And now it's going to generate, be a slightly different style because I chose bulletin as opposed to podcast or conversation. But it's literally now using that data that you uploaded that you found. We use Notebook in this case to kind of be our research repository, literally a notebook full of stuff. And then
Mhm.
we're exporting the parts that we want to create podcasts. So here's an interesting thought. Let's say hypothetically, Deb, you said, I love the saltwater fish industry and I want to be able to write podcasts for it. You could create on a paid plan, which is, by the way, $20 a month. on Gemini, you could create and I think add 500 different entries to Notebook LM. Imagine creating this massive repository about
Mhm.
everything saltwater fish tank related. Once you do that, you then could just go back as we did and you could query it and say, now do one for a podcast about this. So let's example. Now create a similar document, but I want it to focus on the maintenance only of saltwater fish tanks. So using that same data, you've got this massive repository of data. Now I can go in, I don't have to do more research. I don't have to do any more deep research. I can now just in Notebook here go and say, all right, give me this document. And so now it's giving me a document all about the maintenance of fish tanks. And when this is done, I can do the exact same thing
Yep.
that we did and create a podcast about maintenance.
Okay.
So now let's take it one step further. And I don't know how many of you want to do a business out of this, but now imagine that you work with saltwater fisheries from all or aquarium people from all over the nation, maybe all over the world. And you pick one per geographic location to work with. You sell them a subscription and they all get the same podcast, maybe in their own voice, maybe slightly
Mhm.
different, maybe mentioned to them, but it's really easy for you to do because you're basically creating this same podcast on a regular basis. Here's the even better part. If I take this and go into 11 Labs and I want to do what we just talked about, I could go back in and do the another podcast based on the saltwater fish document that I had, change the voice. This time we'll use Chris and we'll use a short bulletin and generate. And guess what? It's going to create a different podcast. It's not going to be the exact same thing.
Mm.
So I didn't have to go out and do more deep research. I didn't have to go out and do tons of work. This is going to take 2 or 3 minutes. You could literally go out and in 5 to 10 minutes per client, create especially if you're in a vertical, create unique podcasts for them just that fast. I did short, so you can see it's really short. But again, these are all going to be unique because it's just like ChatGPT. When you ask ChatGPT the same thing 3 times, you get 3 slightly different
Mhm.
answers. We're going to get 3 slightly different podcasts.
Okay, this was
So,
awesome. Thank you so much. I really
does that make
appreciate it.
sense? Did I answer your questions?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Great question, Deb. I appreciate it. All
Thanks.
right, next we've got Dewana up. Dewana, what's on your mind?
Hi, hello. Okay, so I'm totally confused.
I apologize. We'll try to get that
No,
fixed.
that's okay. So let me explain to you where I'm confused because so I want, can you take me back and do a podcast or tell me the steps as an elementary? I know like I'm
Yep.
third grade. I know you
Yep.
went all over, but if I don't want to do this, all the different tools, but I just want to stick to say two or three, Notebook
Hmm.
LM, Perplexity, or 11 Labs, right?
Yep.
So correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm gonna use the topic emotional intelligence.
Fair enough.
That's one of my services, and I'm gonna
Perfect.
try to find all that. So in Notebook LM, because I was confused before, but then Deb helped me out a little bit. So thank you, Deb, as you did the salt water. So if I did this teamwork, because we're all a team here, right?
It
Community.
is. Absolutely.
So
So you had said emotional what? My ADD brain already forgot. Emotional what?
emotional intelligence. So I will go
Okay.
into Notebook LM.
Yep. And I created a new notebook and I'm just
Okay.
literally just so new notebook. And then first I went to discover. And
And
then I'm
that's
going to
to
just type it.
and
Yep.
that's to do
Emotional.
research, correct?
Correct. This is how I'm going to do my research. Now, there's other ways to do the research. If I have a Google account, I could also use Google's deep research to do this or any of the others, but I'll just import these to assume they're good. The other thing I could do is I can go over into Gemini, which again, Gemini and Notebook LM are on the same account. So if you have a Gemini Pro account for $20 a month, you get access to the Pro of both of those because they're both Google products. So just keep that in mind. Here I can go in and I can do deep research and say the same thing. I want to create a podcast about emotional intelligence. Please do deep research on the topic to provide a comprehensive and detailed repository of reference data for me
Hmm.
to use as I create this podcast using 11 Labs and Notebook LM. Now you don't have to tell 11 Labs and Notebook LM, but now I'm using deep research. Either way, again, I can do it. I'm going to get more detail here, Dawana, than if I do it in Notebook LM.
And that's what I
So
want.
yeah. So then this is, and you have a ton of control over this. You can create a really an unlimited number. This is literally just grabbing things off the web. But both of them are here. Now there's a couple things I can do. Well, actually, you asked me. I don't want to tell you. So we did our deep research. That's how we're going to pull that in. If we're done here, I'm going to just upload this in. It's going to take 10 minutes, so you won't see it. But I literally would just click add, and then I would upload the file or choose it right out of my Google Docs to add that into my repository here.
Okay. All right. So, okay. So I'm using, and I don't have the Pro, but I'm going to subscribe today. So Notebook LM, do the deep research, do the steps that you just mentioned. I'm going to have this wealth of information that
Hmm.
I'm going to take that, upload it to give it a prompt.
Well, let's say we're ready. If I can, may I dive in? Let's say
Absolutely.
let's say we want to now create the podcast. We've got the information and we
Hmm.
want to create a podcast. Is that a fair spot to say?
Yes.
Great. So there's two ways I can do that now. I can go into Notebook LM and I can click generate and it will create that podcast. The downside to doing that is I can't do like multiple podcasts out of this data. I'd have to recreate another notebook to create multiple podcasts. But if I want to, I can create multiple podcasts in 11 labs by using this as a database. Remember how I just showed Deb, please create a comprehensive document for me.
Hmm.
I could do that, and then I can go to 11 labs and I can continue doing that time after time. So there's two ways to do it. If I click and have Notebook LM create the podcast, that's great. But it's kind of a one shot and you're over. In other words, once I have that data there, let me go back and show on this one. So I have my podcast here. It's a 47-minute podcast. I can download it and all that. But if I wanted to do anything else, I literally, let me just download it to make sure I have it. I have to go and delete it and then I can generate another podcast in here. So I generated the first one. Now I could go and undo this and just pick my GenSpark stuff and say generate one based on those. And notice it says it's doing it on three sources.
So Jonathan, I just want to make sure. So if
Yeah,
I'm
and I'm
doing,
probably confusing things, so I apologize, Duana.
oh, no, it's no problem. It just, hey, no problem. That's what we here. That's why I'm here. So I'm gonna use Notebook LM as my warehouse for everything emotional intelligent or whatever, salt water, just to do the deep research like we went
Hmm.
through. Have all that stuff in there so that when I'm ready to do my podcast, I can pick and choose different topics. So the Notebook
Right.
element is my deep research warehouse with everything in there. All right.
Correct.
And then when I want, then from there, then I go over to 11 Labs
Hmm. So
and
what? Yeah, outside of Notebook LM though, you need to create a document to send to 11 Labs. So you're
right.
going to pick the type of podcast you want, like we did here. Create a similar document focusing on maintenance. Then when it does that, then I go over here and then I create, as I did here, this maintaining saltwater aquarium setup and care.
Got you. And then I pick the different, I understand like, for one conversation short and then just
Yep.
to train my voice. Okay. So that's just using it too. But then when I want to use the custom GPT from day one, where did that come in with
So
this?
Piper is really good at think of it as a producer, like you're hiring a producer. When
Hmm.
you're starting a salt, let's say we'll go to the saltwater one, so we've got that. I want to start a saltwater podcast on the saltwater aquariums. We're just going to tell it what we want to do. So let's go ahead and click here, and I want to start a podcast all about saltwater aquariums. I'm starting from scratch. I don't know a lot about saltwater aquariums, but I trust I can get great research from AI tools. So I need you to help me put together this podcast so that I have everything in place to begin recording episodes. Can you walk me through the process? Simple as that.
Hmm.
And Piper now is going to help you kind of walk through each step. So it's going to start talking about, okay, who's our audience? What are we going to call this? We need a name for it. What type of topics are we going to cover? All the things that a producer, if we had a producer, would go over with us. It's going to spend time covering all of those types of things with us. You can then continue in what we went over yesterday. If you remember, I told you yesterday, we're going to start with the hardest way first. Maybe,
Right.
and I probably should have said hardest first and then most confusing second, because I think that's the way it worked out today. I'm sorry for that, guys. But this is the most kind of the step-by-step process that we walk through. So in this case, we're back to stage one, the concept, our audience, our tone, what we want, why are we doing this, that type of thing. And it's asking us for some stuff. So I would literally just want to go through and answer these questions. Then I would want to come up with a name of the show, and we'd literally just walk through one at a time. So I would do this. I think we need to start from square one. So why don't we walk through this one question at a time? You ask me a question, let me respond, and then ask me the next question until we're ready to proceed with everything. Does that make sense? Because my ADD brain can't make sense of 27 questions like that. But AI is great. So here we go. What draws me to saltwater aquarium? So I can literally now go through to want to answer all these questions, which I won't do here. And it will
Right.
build my podcast as a producer would for me, both the name, the concept, my audience, all the things that I need to do to be successful when we talk about publishing it tomorrow. That would give me all of that information.
Okay, so this is the producer, like, hey, this is the idea, this is what we're gonna do. Notebook LM is just gathering all the warehouse of information that I could then use to continue a series for my podcast.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I hope
Thank
that,
you for No,
yeah.
thank you for asking. Obviously, I bounced around more than normal today and made it confusing. So I
No,
appreciate you helping me
it's
clarify.
just me because I'm trying because it's like, all right, I don't want to get stuck on analysis paralysis. I want to do this, and how can I simplify? Like, not with all the different tools that's out there. I want to work my way up. Because I was sitting here like, oh, sugar, I have to sit here and start with all
Well,
this.
I think what I should do is I'm thinking about it, and I won't be able to get this done by tomorrow, but as a resource for everybody, I think what I should do is we should pick a topic like saltwater aquariums, and I should go through and do a Loom video on the whole process. One, here's how we use Piper to set it up. We've got to do that for everything. Then
Okay.
here's how we use Piper to create it if we want to, or here's how we use 11 Labs to create it, or here's how we use Notebook to create it, or here's how we use Notebook and 11 Labs to create it. I think that would probably be helpful. I'm seeing in that it looks like that would be helpful to everybody. I can do a workflow really easily, but I think the video would be helpful for everybody, a video walkthrough. Reminder, I won't have that done by tomorrow,
Oh, and
but
that's fine.
I can definitely do the workflow by tomorrow and get that in place. So,
Okay, and thank you so much, Jonathan, because I was gonna next say because I was going back and looking at NewsCrowd because again, as I'm, now
mhm.
putting everything together, and what was so wonderful with the NewsCrowd because I was looking at it before I came on here when you did the napkin.
Yeah,
So
that
I don't
really
know.
doesn't, that can help out. I can do something similar to that. So,
Okay, thank you for
no,
your
thank you.
time.
These are great questions. I really, really do appreciate them. All
And
right.
Jonathan, I just want to jump in and say, I think you should pick a non-tech topic as your generic topic because I think it makes it a little bit easier to understand for like whether it's cooking or whatever it is that you pick. That way, we're not like thinking about tech while we're dealing with tech kind of
That
thing.
make that makes sense. Sorry to bring you up, Tanya, and not ask you a question. Hang on, I'll be right with you. Let's go in the chat and okay, so I've got a suggestion for cats, and we had saltwater fish tanks. Tell me which of those two topics do you want for the one that I'm going to do the workflow? Should it be cats or should it be saltwater fish? You guys vote. I'll go back through. Looks like cats is winning, but yeah, vote, and then I'll pick based upon that, and we'll do a walkthrough on one of them. That's a great idea. Thanks, Deb. All right, Tanya, you are up next. What's on your mind?
Hey, my question is in Piper, Jonathan, do
Hmm.
you have it trained with something like Answer the Public? Are you familiar with Answer the Public
I am. Yeah, we have not trained Piper with that per se. Um,
or something
although
like
it,
it?
yeah, I mean, Piper's trained to be a podcast producer as opposed to a data generator, if that makes sense. So
Mhm.
if I was going to go out to be generating content or whatever, I would want to look at Answer the Public to define maybe what some of those questions would be. But as far as, hang on a minute, we got to mute somebody there. There we go. As far as, sorry guys, that threw me. Now I got to lose track of where I was.
The
As far as,
content.
yeah, as far as, creating content, it's there to help you create episodes, but no, we've not like uploaded just mainly because of the amount of data. There'd be no way for us to do that. Now you could ask it to check Answer the Public. The problem is that that's password protected now, so it's not actually going to pull any data from that. If you downloaded, you went in and did one of your 3 searches a day on Answer the Public, you could download that as a CSV file and upload that to Piper, and then Piper could use that data.
Okay. Yeah, that was my question, to see what does the market actually, what are they asking for in regards to saltwaters or cats? What
And
does the
and that's
market
a
want?
that's a great question. For those of you guys that aren't familiar, Answer the Public is a great site for that. So let's go out to answer. Oops, if I can spell it right. Answer the Public. There we go. You get three, it is, I believe, yeah, 3 searches a day for free. So if we were looking at this, let's just say salt water fish tanks. I can go in and enter a topic. I can pick where in the world I want that to be, and it will now go and give me the most common questions that it finds that people are asking about saltwater fish tanks. And it's going to take a little bit of time to go through that and figure that out. And what Tanya's saying is a really good idea. You can actually export this as either images or as CSV files. You could then upload that information to Piper as you were planning your podcast. So here you can see, here's a great example of, what's the best fish tank for saltwater? What size do I need? We can go in, our saltwater aquarium is expensive to maintain. So we could grab all this type of information and feed that into Piper. And Piper would then leverage that as it was helping you maybe plan that out. But Piper doesn't necessarily have that information, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, that's really good. So I didn't realize we could take that, put it into Piper.
Hmm.
It's already telling us what the market wants, and then Piper's saying, now I'm going to produce that.
Right. That'd be a great way to do it, to come up with I mean, obviously we want to create an interesting episode or
Yeah,
a lot of interesting episodes. And the best way to do that is go, what are people asking about? This
yeah,
goes back to Tanya, you may be familiar with, I talk about topical authority a lot. When you were creating any type of content, we always want to create content that relates back to what our audience is asking, because that's what they're interested in. And the
totally.
beauty of this is, and I will stand and die on this hill, if you're providing value to your audience doesn't care whether AI was involved in creating it or not. There's those people that disagree with me on that. But, people that are out there, and if you're selling this to a business, you may want to tell them that. If you're providing value, nobody goes, oh, well, that was a great article, but I'm not going to remember it because it was written by AI. You just go, oh, that was a great article.
Yeah,
If
totally.
it's a bad article, you're going to probably assume it was AI because there's lots of that out there. But if it's good, nobody cares. So, yeah, that would be a great tip, though, Tanya. Take that, do your research, pull that into Piper, and that'll help you plan that out as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And did I miss yesterday afternoon? I pieced out after an hour and a half. I had another meeting, but did you talk about creating the visual AI melted in with this, or is that something you're gonna?
We haven't really talked much about the video, only because I know there's just only so much time to put
Okay,
in for this. It's also creating a video podcast becomes far more complicated and far more costly to
okay,
do. There are tools out there that we could take a look at to do that with, but a 5-minute podcast is going to probably cost $10 just to
Hmm,
do on video.
got it.
And while you may go, okay, that's not a big deal, most podcasts being, say, 30 minutes or more,
Yeah,
that means you're going to spend 50 to $70 an episode just for the video. I made the executive decision, let's focus on the audio, which we can do and deliver still. And I don't have the exact stat, but the majority of podcasts are still devoured in audio format, not video format. So it's still a really, really powerful format to have.
okay,
So,
beautiful.
yeah, great
Thank
question.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey,
Abigail,
Jonathan.
Yeah, Sherry.
Sorry, before you pick the next person, I just want to make sure you don't forget to talk about what you're going to what you would charge someone to do
I
this for them.
I just need somebody to raise their hand and ask, but I'll go ahead and give you guys some estimates on that. I think it depends, first of all, on how you want to lay it out when it comes to costs. By the way, thank you, Sherry. I didn't mean to cut you off on that. That was appreciated. Um, it depends on how you want to put your packages together. If I'm doing this, if Jonathan's doing this, I'm going to start by first trying to find 5 to 10 businesses that are willing to pay me to create podcasts for them. Because of the time involved, I can tell you how I'm going to do it. I'm going to create, I'm going to find a vertical. I'm going to pick a vertical for our sake of discussion. Let's say that I want to work with roofers. So I'm going to then go learn everything I can about residential roofing, assuming that's who I'm going to be pitching is residential roofers. I'm going to go into Notebook LM. I'm going to build out a massive database of everything I can find about residential roofing, shingle style, metal roofing, ceramic, how to fix leaks, how to handle repairs, all the problems, the maintenance, you name it. I'm going to put all that in one big Notebook LM. Then I'm going to decide, I'm going to just steal what Tanya just shared. That's actually a shortcut. I'm going to go to answer the public, and I'm going to pick topics, questions that I want to answer. I'm then going to go back to Google Notebook LM, and I'm going to tell Google Notebook LM, write me a background data based on all the data in our database so that I can create a podcast answering this question. It's going to give me a document. I'm going to download that document, go to 11 Labs. I'm going to upload it into 11 Labs and have an 11 Labs podcast feature create it for me. It's so much, that's the fastest way to do it. When I do it that way, that means, Sherry, let's say I'm working with you, and I know you're not a roofer, but just hypothetically, if you were and I was working with you, that means I can create a podcast episode for you every week in probably about 30 minutes. Now I'm going to look back and go, okay, how much do I need to earn? It's going to be different for everybody based on where you're at, what your bills are. You know, Sherry lives on the West Coast, the expensive coast. I live in the Midwest. It's cheaper. It's going to possibly make some differences as to what you want to charge. I would think if you're creating audio podcasts and you're publishing them though, and they're customized, meaning this is the only client that's getting it. You're paying for it and it's unique to you. I would think you should charge somewhere between $150 and $300 per podcast episode. And I would probably shoot for about 30 minutes, give or take, on creating those. Once I got 5 or so of those customers, let's say I was at, we'll cut it in the middle. We'll go to the low end at 150. If I got 5 customers, that means now I'm bringing in $750 a week. That's going to help offset a lot of costs for most of us. Maybe I get 10 customers. Now I'm at $1,500 a week coming in. Not going to have a lot of AI cost. I'm going to have some 11 Labs cost, maybe $100 a month or so. Not too bad. Next, I'm going to move to the second phase of my business, and I'm going to start working on a subscription plan where I provide podcasts to roofers all across the nation. The difference here is instead of creating unique podcasts for every roofer every week, I'm going to create a unique podcast every week, and the same podcast is going to go out to every roofer on my subscription. But instead of them paying $150 or $250 an episode, they're probably going to pay like $50 an episode. And what I would probably do is I'll send you the podcast for $50. If you want us to upload it, you provide us with the relevant information, we'll upload it for $80 or $75, something like that. Personally, I'd just send it to him so I didn't have to do the upload because I don't want to do the upload, or I'd go find somebody that could do the uploads for me. And then the goal is not to have a few, but to get to 100. If I have 100 roofers paying me $50 a week for a podcast, then now I'm at $5,000 a week. But my workload, when I think about it, has dropped because I'm creating one podcast. I'm not creating 500 or 50 unique podcasts or 100 unique podcasts. I'm creating one podcast and I'm limiting it to one roofer per area. Now, this only works if you've got people that are geographically based or have territories, and roofers are a good example of that because most roofers are not going to drive 200 miles to put on a new roof. They're going to work in about an hour, hour and a half drive radius of their office. That means that I can work with somebody. I'm in Michigan right now. I can have a roofer in Grand Rapids. I could have another roofer if I go an hour away in Kalamazoo, in Lansing, in Detroit, in Saginaw, in Flint. Those two might be too close. Benton Harbor, Traverse City. I can probably have 30 cities, maybe 40 just in Michigan. I'm not going to sell all of them, but if I sell them that episode, let's just say I sell 10% of them. So that's four in Michigan. If I sell four in Michigan, that's $200 a week, but I'm only creating one podcast. And if I multiply that times 50 states, I'm at 200 every week that are paying me $50. By the way, that's $10,000 a week you've got coming in now, and you're creating one podcast. You use a tool like Go High Level or something like that to send the podcast links out to everybody. So you create the email once and it automatically sends to everybody, just like we send you guys your reminders and all that. I'm not creating, we're not writing those one by one. We write the email once and High Level sends those out. That's the pricing model I would look at. First, I'd get a couple of clients, get my feet wet, learn what I'm doing, get maybe 10 clients. Then I'd start trying to find, and again, pick a niche that has local service, any home service, chiropractors, dentists, anybody that sells to consumers or sells in an area. That's what I would then focus on as a niche. Saltwater fish tanks would be a great one because let's face it, most of those are not shipping nationally. It's too heavy to do that. So most of that stuff people are buying within an hour of where they live. And if I can create a great saltwater podcast and I can sell that to all of them, and again, those are just rough numbers, that's how you can scale a business and not have to go crazy with the amount of work that you do because you're literally able then to create once and sell many times. But Sherry, you're in LA, correct? If I remember, LA, a suburb of LA, correct?
Yeah, I'm in LA County.
Yeah, okay. So if I sell to you as a saltwater aquarium expert and retailer in LA County, and I sell to somebody else in San Diego, and I sell to somebody in Phoenix, your audience is never going to probably care, and you're not going to care because it doesn't have to all be totally unique every single time. It's fed to your audience, if that makes sense. And if I'm in Phoenix, I'm not hiring somebody out of LA County to do my saltwater tanks, just not the way it's going to work. So that's how I would do it. I hope that answers questions. If you guys have more questions about pricing or you want me to go into more detail, please raise your hand. I would love to have that discussion. We've got some time left to do that, and I'd love to dig into that. But that's how Jonathan would build this business starting tomorrow if this is what I was going to be doing. All right, with that, Abigail, it's your turn. What's on your mind?
Hi, Jonathan.
Yes.
Um, I'm just wondering, what was the regular duration of a podcast? I saw that in 11 Labs, there is short, there is long, and all that. But do you have an idea of, the minutes, how many minutes, and what would you advise? Should it be just maybe doing long podcasts or a mixture, long and short? I want your take on this. Thank you.
Well, it depends on the industry that you're in, but let's just ask Perplexity. I'm going to guess it's around 30 minutes is where you're going to go. Let's just see what it says here. Now, this is again going to be very broad, and this looks like it's a little bit outdated, but let's see. The average length of a podcast typically falls between 30 and 42 minutes. Multiple studies are supporting that. Some of these are pretty old from 2018, but you can see here we've got 41 minutes. 20 to 40 minutes, 38 to 43 minutes, 30 to 45. So I would say here you go. Interview podcasts about 45 minutes. Solo podcasts, just me talking, 15 to 40. And they vary widely from 20-minute episodes to then you've got Joe Rogan who does multiple hours. You certainly would not have to do multiple hours. If I was putting together a podcast, I would probably be shooting for 20 to 30 minutes for my episodes as a general rule. Part of it is really understanding your audience too. In other words, if you're selling this to a saltwater aquarium dealer, how much time does that audience want to spend? And if you're using some of the questions, how detailed do they need to be? I think you could actually build a successful podcast off of short 5 to 10 minute clips that were really relevant. Look how popular Reels are and TikToks and YouTube Shorts. Those go up to 90 seconds. Now we probably need a little more than 90 seconds, but imagine a 5 to 10 minute podcast that was put out maybe instead of weekly, maybe it was put out daily, and it covered one specific question from Answer the Public. You could do an entire year's worth of content Monday through Friday. That'd be 250 podcasts, 260 podcasts for the year. They could each be under 10 minutes. And I believe, could be wrong, you could still develop an incredible following on something like that. So I want to encourage you, as you're thinking about ways to do this, feel free to think outside the box and think of ways to interact with the audience that's going to engage the audience, because that's the part that really matters. All right, Jaquine, you're up next. What's on your mind?
Yes, quickly.
Oh, you're good. No, go ahead. You asked a great question earlier, by the way. If I in any way made you feel rushed, I apologize. I was
Oh,
just
no, no,
trying to
no.
figure out how to explain it. And it's pretty clear. I could have done a better job of not confusing people. So,
No, I'm writing all these extra notes down in my notebook and I had to go back to my question page. Um, so on the platforms, what I notice is that typically what I see you doing is you're having voice A and voice B. Is there a scenario where you can have three voices?
so that's not supported right now by 11 Labs by
Oh,
default, or you could, but you'd have to manually create that in the studio in 11 Labs. You can have as
oh,
many voices as you want if you go into the studio. The difference there, and I'll just quickly share my screen here, because I know when I talk about things, sometimes it doesn't make sense. So if I go into the studio and I say start from scratch, I can
mm-hmm.
go ahead and I can have as many voices as I want. But I have
Oh.
to plan out each line essentially. Let me see if I have my
Oh, so
my
in that instance, you would probably maybe upload the script from Piper if you
yep,
had
from
three
Piper
voices.
or from Descript or something like that.
Oh,
Yeah,
from
but probably
oh,
no,
from
I
Descript.
no, I'd do
Okay.
it from Piper. Yeah, good point. No, you're right. It'd have to be Piper because Descript's only going to do two. So I'd have to go in
Oh,
and have
oh,
Piper create the script.
uh-huh.
And let me take that back. Notebook LM is only going to do two voices, and that's what we were
Okay.
transcribing in Descript. So
Right. Uh-huh.
yeah, just to make sure I'm saying things right. But yeah, Piper could create a 4 person roundtable or
Uh-huh.
panel discussion if you wanted, and you could feed that in
Right,
here,
right.
and you could do that. And then let's just say, so we've got voice one, voice two, voice three, voice four. That would obviously I spelled that wrong. But when I come up here, I can pick any voice that I want. So now if I want to pick a different voice, I can pick Cassidy for that one. And I can go to voice three and I can pick Charlie for that one. And I
Uh-huh.
can go to voice four and pick Rachel. And now as I go over these, you can see there's Jonathan, voice two
Uh-huh.
is Cassidy, voice three is Charlie, and voice four is Rachel. And if I generate that, you'd have all four voices showing. So you can do that in the studio. Where you
Oh.
can't do that is if I go create a podcast.
Oh,
I only
oh, okay.
I only have the opportunity in create a podcast to do two voices at that point.
Okay, okay. And I want to piggyback off what Deb said about the saltwater fish. Love it. Um, Um, so when you just gave the overview of if you were going to start a business doing this,
Mhm.
and so basically what you could do if to personalize it by if you wanted to is to go to each roofing client and if it's the owner and say, well, why don't I, you know, record your voice and then your voice would always be one of the people speaking or the only one speaking for yours, or would that complicate the matter?
Well, it'll definitely complicate it, and you can do that, but you'll want to charge a lot more money. And the reason
Oh.
is because it's going to take a lot of time. So part of
Because
it's
it's
just the
more
way
customization.
yeah, it's a great point, Jaquine, and part of it is making a decision. Are you looking to be boutique or are you looking to serve many?
Be to be a warehouse like Costco. Just kidding.
My preference is, and it's not right or wrong, just my preference is I would rather, it's like I do with my courses. I sell my courses for $97. I have peers that sell those literally almost the same thing I do for $1,000. And they're like, Jonathan, you're crazy for selling it for $97. I'm like, yeah, but I'm gonna get 300 or 400 people that sign up. You get 30. And they're
Uh-huh.
like, well,
Hmm.
yeah, true. It's just, it's my preference to do it the way I
Right.
do it. You guys may be different. as I get older, I'm 56 years old. I am
Mhm.
looking for ways that I can do I don't want to say the minimum
Do the
amount of
most
work,
with the minimum.
get the most value. In other words, if I
Hmm.
could create a, imagine that every week I put 10 hours into creating the most amazing saltwater fish tank podcast that you can
Hmm.
imagine. It's
Hmm.
stellar. It's incredible.
Hmm.
If I can now sell that to 100 or 200 different aquarium shops around the US,
Hmm.
that's great.
Hmm.
If I have to do that and then I have to do another 10 hours for the next one, oh my gosh,
Oh,
now if I sell five of them, that's 50 hours a week I have to put in.
oh, oh.
If if did you see the difference there? And so
Yes, I do. I
that's
do. Okay,
that's
in
again my
10
preference
seconds.
only. Yeah.
10 seconds. Which one of these, because we've been going over Descript, Notebook, blah, blah, blah. Which one of these platforms where you could change the language?
I think you can do it in most of them. I'd have to check, but I think you can
Oh,
change it
I
in
mean,
almost all of them.
in terms of the audio part. Was it just
Yeah.
11 Labs you can change the language?
Well, as far as language or as far as the voice? You mean English to
I'm
Spanish, or
sorry,
are you
the
talking about?
voice, the voice, the voice.
No, so Descript and 11 Labs will
Oh,
allow you to change voice.
okay. Thank
Yep.
you.
No, thank you. Good questions. All right, Patrick, you are next, sir. What's on your mind?
Yeah, thanks so much. I hadn't really thought about doing this for a business, but you just like perked up my entrepreneurship.
I love that. That's good. We like that.
and and being 70, so a lot older than you, always looking for ways to find a way to cut down the amount of hours that I'm working and that's kind of what I'm looking at now. I do a lot of more boutique stuff now, and I'm trying to do something else. So I was thinking if I'm going to reach out to other people, let's just saltwater fish people.
Yep.
Actually, I love that because I used to have my own tank. But when you're going to the business owner, what have you found, or have you found are benefits for, let's say, our roofer or electrician or somebody else for them to have a podcast? Like
Great question.
who is their audience, so that when you are going to these guys and you're going, oh, I want to get 50 people that are roofers in different 50 cities, what's the benefit to them that
Great
you can?
question. The benefit to them is what we call topical authority. In other words, if they want to be seen as the go-to expert in whatever their specialty is, the best roofer in that town, the best chiropractor, the best dentist. The best dentist has very little to do with the awards you've won anymore. It has to do with how easily and often people hear about you. So by having a podcast that goes out every week, especially in an industry where a lot of those people are just too busy to do podcasts, you're providing value to your audience. And that means that as time goes on, you've now got more and more content that is more likely to be found by your audience. So the next time that my roof leaks, I don't necessarily go to the yellow pages because unless you're old like me, you don't even remember what those are. When I go to Google, there's more content about your roofing company, so you're likely to rank higher. But more importantly, when I find you and I hear about ABC Roofing and I look at ABC Roofing and XYZ Roofing, and ABC Roofing's got podcasts and they've got a few videos and they've got some testimonials and they've got a bunch of stuff. And I go to XYZ Roofing and they've got a website.
It
Who am
gives
I
you,
going to call
yeah,
first? I'm going to call
yeah. So
ABC first.
actually, it's actually an SEO play in one essence.
It is.
Same thing years ago when I used to have people doing reputation videos and things like that. It's just so that you can get more backlinks, right?
Yes.
So I guess once we see where you host them, because I've never done a podcast, so I don't know even how those get out there, but that'll answer some of my questions, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Thank
and we'll
you.
talk about that tomorrow. It's really easy. There are some what they call podcast distribution services, and literally you upload it to them, and then they send that out to Apple and to Google and to Spotify and all the others that have podcast services so that you show up everywhere. And we'll be covering that
Yeah.
tomorrow for everybody. So
Thank
good
you. Thank you.
question.
You really
Thank
helped
you.
me out.
Deb, you're back. Man, that saltwater fish idea, Deb, has really got me thinking. What's on your mind?
Yeah,
What gem you got for me now?
yeah, I'm sorry to come back again,
No,
but
no, it's awesome.
I like to push you and challenge you. So here I
I
am to
appreciate that
challenge.
normally.
Here I am to challenge. And there's a little side comments going on in the comments that I want to bring up, and that is, if you could talk about this idea of the membership, where all the roofers you'd be producing one podcast for a string of different
Right, for
companies,
multiple roofers, yeah.
from multiple roofers. Well, how are you dealing with that? Because most podcasts are like globally, they're seen globally, or you're hosting all on Apple Podcasts. And like, if you dive into, let's say you're going to dive into a topic, um, are you going to, like, you're probably going to listen to more than one podcast of the same thing. And so, like, if you've got, let's say you have 10 people, 10 different roof
Hmm.
companies, and there are saltwater fish companies, and they're all saying the same thing, that seems to not be as interesting as if a customized podcast. So could you talk about
You're
how you
right.
would deal with that, and what you
Yeah.
would say to the business owner that's like, well, why do I want the same thing that, Joe an hour away has, or Susie over, 2 states over?
Deb, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. I'm going to treat you just like the prospect and go, it's a real simple thing. If you're absolutely right, by the way, that you one on your own is going to potentially rank better. But have you ever heard of syndication in the radio world? You know how the syndicated radio shows are the big radio shows, they're the ones everybody wants. And you're right. If I'm traveling and I'm used to listening to a syndicated radio show, I might look for that show somewhere on a radio station wherever I'm at, but I'm going to listen to it in my local area. So in my area, I attribute that show to the local radio station that I listen to it on. It's going to be the same thing with your podcast. You're going to have a syndicated podcast, and we'll identify it as such. There'll be no pulling the wool over anybody's eyes or anything else. You'll be part of a syndicated network, but it'll be brought to you by ABC Roofing, or in your case, Deb Mitchell Roofing. And so you're going to be the one that has that benefit. Now, if you say, Jonathan, that's great. What I really want, though, is I want one that's all my own. Not a problem. But unfortunately, that one's not $50 a week. So how important is it? Because by the way, that one's $250 a week. And I'm happy to do that if you'd like that. Is it enough extra value in your mind to cover that extra $800 a month? It's totally up to you. I offer both services. Which would you prefer?
Got it. Okay, that makes a lot more sense of framing it that way, and that the podcast goes out amongst everything. And then, if we're saying that it's brought to you by Deb Mitchell, are you then saying that how you would set it up is, would you be setting it up with like the bumpers on it, for each of the 10, each of the 10 places, or is it just the generic like inside content that goes out, and then they have to deal with like that part of it?
I haven't thought that through well enough, to be honest
Yeah,
with you. That's a good question. I
we'll
think,
ask you tomorrow to then.
no, I'll give you my thoughts on it. I mean, I think these would be upsell packages.
Yeah,
So
okay.
the base package, again, super easy, super affordable, and again, 50-ish dollars a week is what I'm thinking, right
Yeah.
around that. If a business can't afford that, that's a problem. So $50 a week. Now, if you want us to, we will create your your bumpers for you for a one-time setup of $250. That'll be bumper intros, that'll be bumper
Right.
outros and everything else. If you want us to add them to the file and upload for you, we'll do that, but that's an extra $50 a week.
Right. Okay.
If you just want the audio file, the podcast, and you've got somebody on your staff that can do that for you, then that's our base price. What this allows me to do as a marketer, now going away from the sales pitch, as an agency now, I'm able to sell podcasts at $50 a week.
Hmm.
You then get to determine, well, hang on, I really want that. I want this. And every industry does this. I just bought a minivan and I was like, you know what? The base level minivan is going to be just fine. I took my wife with me. I should have known better. Okay. We walked out not with the base model, believe it or not, when we were done, because as they said, well, yeah, the base model starts at this price, but you said you wanted this and you wanted that. And well, if you want the heated seats and you want the heated steering wheel, we got to go to this package. And
I'm not
unfortunately,
a base girl. I'm an upgrade
I had my
girl.
wife with me, and my wife informed me that she didn't want to drive a new vehicle that didn't have heated seats in that when we're up in Michigan sometimes. And I'm like, yeah, it's a valid point. I get it. So we upset. So the what got my attention was that $50 a week podcast. I walked out at $100 a week podcast because I saw the value in it once I saw the rest of the packages.
Got it.
Does that
Well,
make
and
sense?
then, yeah, and from a marketer, I can't help to say this, and lots of you in the room know this, that like if you could get 10 or 30 fish store owners all in the same group, next thing you know, you're offering them other things besides just a podcast because,
Exactly.
you
Well,
know,
and you know
they can.
that's what we talked about. A lot of you guys have talked about doing GPTs. Literally, the things we've talked about, creating these GPTs, creating podcasts, using it to create social media. We've talked in other trainings about creating social media for clients. All of this can be brought together to form an entire agency for you that you can
Mhm.
offer to people. And you're right, it really doesn't matter where they come in. My old agency, by the way, we used to call Valorous Circle. And the circle was based on the fact that we offered a circle of services. We did websites and we did this and we did that. And it didn't really matter where they came in. They could hire us at first to build a website. They could have hired us at first to do social media. They could have hired us at first to do Google Ads. It didn't matter because as they then became a client, they found out that we did all of these things that were complementary to each other. And you're right, Deb, most of those clients over the next year or so ended up doing multiple projects with us with multiple services. And the same thing would happen here, whether they come in as a social media client or as a podcast client, as a custom GPT client. If you offer complementary services like that, they're going to start adding more and more. And that now means your lifetime value of each customer goes up dramatically.
Well, and I even think that you could sell sponsorships for this, so that
Oh, that's a
like
great idea.
for example, let's go back to the fish. My husband has a 90-gallon saltwater fish tank. That's why I use that
That's
example.
a great example.
But for example, like the lights that he has and like all the different parts and pieces that he needs and all the different manufacturers, you could be selling a sponsorship to them and saying, look, this is going to 10 different saltwater fish stores. And this is what a sponsorship package is. And as the agency, you would be getting the money for the sponsorship, not necessarily the fish store. But that would be part
Exactly.
of the, yeah. Okay, cool.
No,
Thank you
and
so much.
I love that because now you just pitch that as part of the proposal. At the $50 one, we are going to put, we have two ad spots per 20 minute. Each ad spot's
Mhm.
1 minute long. We
Mhm.
sell ads that subsidizes and what keeps your cost at $50 a week. I love that idea because now you find in the roofing industry, you find like a Certainteed or one of those companies that's selling nationally. For them to pay you $5,000 a month in order to have one of those spots is nothing to a national company. But
Yeah, well, and I
it,
think in the
but
case
the
of like the
value it would
roofing.
have is huge.
Yeah. And I think like the case of the roofing company, because you're hiring the roofing company, and who the podcast is for, it's for the homeowner. So it
Correct.
makes sense. Like I don't care about roofing supplies and all that kind of thing, but what I do care about is maybe some other home, like having water delivered to my house or
Yeah, I was going to say,
another
yeah,
like
complimentary services,
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I
Okay.
totally agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
Okay.
great idea, Deb.
Cool.
See, that's
Thanks
what
so
these
much.
are these are so cool. We come up with ideas like this. I love it. Fantastic. We've moved down the way. All right, Dewana, you're up next. What's on your mind?
11 Labs starter plan or create a plan to start
I
with.
would start with the basic one and then upgrade as needed.
So the starter one, okay.
I would absolutely do starter and then as you need to upgrade. I'm a huge one. Monthly costs add up way too fast.
Yes.
So I'd rather start if you need to upgrade, they'll always let you upgrade. It's never a problem.
Okay. And then intro and outro, since I was just speaking about that. Are you going to
Yep.
talk about
So
that?
if you want to do intro and outro, we'll talk a little bit more about it tomorrow if we have time, but you're going to basically create like bumper music. So imagine when you're like, this podcast is brought to you by XYZ Roofing. You might have that statement and a little bit of bumper music behind it or whatever. It's not a lot because people don't want to listen to a 30-second explanation. They're going to want to listen to literally a 5-second version. So the bumper music is something we'll talk about briefly. You can use Suno or Refusion to create that. And then you're going to have just a single, if that, you're going to have some single statement about the company. So, this podcast brought to you by or sponsored by ABC Roofing in Tallahassee, Florida, your residential roofing experts. That's it.
Gotcha. Because I'm still stuck on topical authority because as I'm going
It's
through this,
important.
I'm like topical authority, news scribe, subscribe, but like all this is packaged to one to me is just so powerful. And again,
It
it's
is.
keeping the consistency across every channel.
Thanks,
Well,
Jonathan.
and it's good to think that way because as you educate your customers, that's going to have huge value to them as well as you keep educating them on the importance of pulling all that together. So you're absolutely right. Absolutely. All right, Tanya, you're back up. What's on your mind?
Well, I think Deb just said it. It was really about the sponsorship. I know somebody who's they're a travel agent specifically for Italy, and
Hmm.
now their podcasts are live, but my brain is churning, and we don't do done for you, but consult in that space. And so they 90 they said like 90 over 90% of their leads for their travel agencies come through their podcast.
I
It's
bet.
all about Italy. So I'm just and with that they now have different people who have joined, the sponsorships in their podcast advertisements, and just man, I mean, my mind is just like, man, this is a business. I wouldn't want to do this, but anybody that would for our clients, this is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the value in that. I mean, imagine you're that Italian travel agency. You start talking about Italy and everything else when it comes time, and not that I'm thinking about it, but my wife and I, we've been talking about an Alaskan cruise for years. If there
Yeah.
was a company, I'm sure there is, that specializes in that. When we got ready to look, and you were telling me about all the options and all the cruise lines and all the destinations, and make sure you go here. And if you don't get to this one, it really doesn't matter, and all
Yeah.
the things to do. And here are the inside secrets that nobody tells you about. Then guess what? When I'm ready to book that cruise, I'm booking with them. Period. End of story.
Jonathan, that is what we did. We went to Italy because our daughter was studying abroad. We'd never been, we knew nothing.
Yep.
And we used this company based on a podcast and their knowledge of those hidden secrets. And it was the most smooth, just incredible experience and locations and all of that because of them. It was because of that
Yeah.
podcast. But I'm thinking, gosh, they don't even have to be present for something like this, you know?
Well, and that's the beauty of it. They don't. And imagine now being able to scale that. Again, talk about niches. Just
Yeah.
finding the travel agents that specialize in a particular niche. I have one travel agent I know, all she does is Disney. I've
Yeah.
never used her because I don't want to go to Disney, but that's all she does. And you know what? If I did, that's who I would call because she
Yeah.
knows everything about going to Disney. I have another one who's special, a friend of mine that specializes in European riverboat cruises. I didn't even know that was a thing until I met her, but that's what she does. I want to do Disney. She doesn't do that. But if you want to book a
Mhm.
European, so there's got to be a lot of people in the travel industry that do that. And again, imagine being able to create those types of podcasts for them. And the beauty of that type of stuff, so much of that is going to be available by deep research that you'll be able to find and add value. And then they add a couple of snippets in here and there with some of their tidbits. Oh, it'd be
Yeah.
amazing.
Amazing. Just
Great share. Thank you. Thank you, Tanya. All right. Simran, you're up next. What's on your mind?
Give
There
me
you go.
one second.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm on another call, so sorry.
We won't tell them, I promise.
I just try and listen while because we get all these nuggets of wisdom. The music that you put in, downloaded and put in the shared document, to listen to that, do we have to sign up for that? Because I wasn't able to open it up.
I'll have to double check. You shouldn't have to, but you may have to sign up for a free account with Refusion. I can upload others. Those were just samples. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into the music tomorrow. So, you'll have an opportunity. If you miss those, it's literally just instrumentals. It's nothing special. But we'll dive into that a little bit deeper tomorrow of some ways that you can do that and create that really effectively.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Simran. I appreciate you joining us. That's awesome. All right, next we've got Ed. Ed, what's on your mind, sir?
Hey, Jonathan. In thinking about this, how would one repurpose the podcast to use on YouTube?
Great question. So what I would do on that is I would actually go into Descript, and Descript offers the ability to create something that's called an audiogram. And an audiogram is literally a video where there's like an audio bar bouncing back around, and you can brand it with your logo and everything else. You can put that up and then make a video podcast that just happens to be an audiogram. And yeah, in fact, let me go find a sample of that just so I can show everybody what that looks like. But Descript supports that out of the box. It's awesome. Well, let's go take a look at YouTube here a minute. And I'm pretty sure I've got one on my channel somewhere. Jonathan Mast AI audiogram. And let's see if I can find one. Of course, now that I want to find one, I'm not going to find one quickly at all. Let's see here. Audiogram. Let's just look for that. But it's literally a video that has like an audio bar in it that's playing here. We'll do better than that. Descript audiogram. And it's a great, easy way to go ahead and do that. Here's kind of an example. So you can see this blue screen. That's kind of how it works. You have a bar like this that comes across and it moves as the audio moves. You can then put your logo in it. And then if you want, you can put your transcript in it as well. And it literally will put the words in as you're doing it. So that's what I would do to create video on these versus trying to put a character to them and everything else. I would create audiograms right inside a Descript. The downside to creating videos and rolling that through from a, hey, I want to have a character or a persona is literally just the cost that you get into. If we're averaging 20 and 30-minute podcasts, you put that together as a video, they get very expensive very, very fast. An audiogram like that isn't going to cost you. It's part of your $30 a month Descript subscription. So much, much more affordable. You can do hundreds of them.
Would you change many of the parameters or length or anything else for YouTube from the podcast you create?
I wouldn't. No, I would literally just bring it in as an audiogram, and then that would be another way I would distribute. I have to say that right. The podcast. So it would go out as an audiogram. It would go out as a uh, an audio one, just as audio to everybody else. YouTube's really going to be. Spotify does, I guess, this video podcast now as well, but you could upload that same video to Spotify as well. Yeah, great question, Ed. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. That was a good one.
Thank you.
Jaquine, what's on your mind?
Yes, thinking about all of these podcasts and the cumulative of them, and not just you, but anybody in the audience that wants to type it in there, you got to have somewhere to store all this.
You
Where do you store all this data?
Well, if you're going to store it online, that makes it the easiest way to do it. You can subscribe through Google really easily and get it. I want to say I've got like a few terabyte that I pay like $20 a month for. Google, let's see here, Google Drive storage pricing. There's what I want. So yeah, you can get 100 GB on Google for $2 a month.
Only that's 200.
So
2
that's all 100
terabytes.
2 terabyte. You can go up to 2 terabytes, which I think is like $20 or $30 a month. Let's see here, man. There you go. 2 terabytes, $10 a month.
$10 a month. Okay.
Now the other thing you can do if you want is, and this is what I have. Let me just see if I can. I'm looking at it on my desk here a minute. I've got to look to see what brand it is. I don't remember Sam. I think it's a Samsung external SSD. Yeah. There we go. Think this is it. Yeah, this one right here. So I have this one on my desk. So for $300, I have one on my desk that literally connects. It's as fast as my computer is because they're getting so good.
Okay.
And I've got 4 terabyte of space on there.
And it's an SSD.
I mean, and literally, copying from my computer, like, one directory to another directory on my computer or connecting from my computer to that, I cannot tell the difference. It is that fast. So and I'm one for multiple backups. So I have a lot on Google, but I also back up a lot of stuff locally, and I work on my laptop a lot. And sometimes I want files that are available if I'm not going to be with access. And so that's just a good way to do that. For $300, it'll last me a couple of years, and I can put tons and tons of stuff on there
Okay.
and go. And they make them even larger now. I think they're up to 16 gigabyte or terabyte now.
Mm.
But
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
you can see there's lots of different options here, depending on what you want to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no, good question. I appreciate it. All right, we've got about 7 minutes left, but I have almost 22 minutes left because I've got an extra 15 if anybody's got it. So we're going to go through as many questions as we can. Ed, you're up next. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Jonathan, what would be the different steps and tools if one was to create one of these video type YouTubes? What would be
I
different?
can I will go ahead and do a Descript overview. I'm kind of getting the feeling we may need to add a fourth day here. We've got lots of great questions. So let me look at my schedule. I've got some travel coming up next week, but let me see if there's any way we can squeeze in a fourth day because I have a feeling with a lot of these questions, there's a lot of variables, and this is normally when I do trainings, we just kind of do one thing, and there's one way to do it. There's so many variables with podcasts. Let me know in the comments if you think that would be worth it, either replay or not, to add a fourth day. Yeah, and we could certainly talk about how to do those audiograms. All right, looks like everybody likes that idea. Okay, I'm committed. We'll find a fourth day, and I'll show you there how to do those audiograms as well.
Great.
No,
Thank
good
you.
question. Yeah, for those of you guys that want to do video, I don't want to discourage you from doing video, but I want everybody to really be thinking about quality and cost. So let's go take a quick look here a minute, and I don't know the answer, so maybe I'm going to be embarrassed here, but let's go into Perplexity and what percentage of users listen to podcasts versus watch them on video. See if we can find out. Video podcasts are great, but I think when it comes to AI, I'm not sure that we're ready based on the costs, very candidly. But let's just see here. So actively watch videos. 42% say they do. I'm not sure I would buy that, but my guess is it was going to be more like the 28% did that. I think when you see the audiogram, that's going to likely be sufficient for what we're doing. And I could be wrong, but the amount of work involved to take these audio podcasts and turn them into a video podcast is exponential compared to where we're doing what we're doing right now. Keep in mind that most video platforms are only going to support 20, 30 seconds worth of video. And so to do longer, we've got to do specialty platforms like Hedra and that. Hedra can do that, but you're going to pay probably close to $1 a minute. So, if you run a 30-minute podcast every week, are you willing to spend another $30 a week? I'm not saying it's unreasonable, but are you willing to spend that? And I'm not sure that creating video, I see people asking about that. I don't know that I'm going to take the time to go into that in depth. I'm having a hard time justifying it based upon the workflow to do so. It's a much more arduous portion of this. Now, by the end of the year, that may be different, but as we speak here in June, that's a heavy lift to turn these into a good video. You can turn them into a crappy video, no problem, but I don't know we want to turn them into a crappy video. So let me ponder that a little bit for those of you going, can we talk more about video? Maybe. Erica, you're up next. What's on your mind?
Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for a great training. This is my first time interfacing, so it's
Well,
very
welcome. I'm
exciting.
glad you're here.
So I did have a question about the audiogram.
Huh?
Could you not use that audio file or that audiogram to just overlay basic stock footage or footage you have of a destination or
Sure.
any image? Right. So you could
Yeah.
do the video easily without having to create videos that ties into the podcast in terms of word for word as a narrative. You can just have, Italy and just, drone shots of
Yeah.
Italy.
Great question. If when I'm referring to video, I'm referring to like literally like two lifelike avatars that look good and all that type
Right.
of stuff. I mean, that's where I see a really heavy lift. No, for like the travel agent stuff, absolutely creating basically a background reel of Italy photos or Alaskan cruise photos or whatever. No, absolutely you could do that. In fact, there's so many videos. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this or not. Just to give you an example, and this is not quite the same, but it's similar. If I go out to YouTube and if I start looking for music here and see if I can find it, especially if I do ADHD music, I know I will. There is so much stuff out here like this, and hopefully this is one of them. Let me skip through the ad here just a minute. And these videos play music and sound, and this is what you see. I know you guys can't hear the music, but it just sits in the background. I know literally hundreds of people that listen to this type of music when they're at work, when they're whatever, and they're doing it via YouTube. So the numbers say they're doing it with video, but they're not actually looking at this. Nobody cares. So you could do the same type of branded overlay, if that makes sense, for a podcast or anything like that. Add in a little bit of movement with an audiogram, and I think kind of be achieving what you're talking about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it was just a way of of taking, quote unquote radio and
Yeah,
making it
yeah,
screen workable. But most people who are on YouTube, they're listening. Generationally, it's well, I won't go into it, but YouTube is the biggest social network, believe it or
yes,
not. Um,
it is.
and a lot of people do get just random rabbit holes going down things and finding things. So it's a good place to be with video.
I'm guilty of the rabbit hole thing. It happens almost every night. It's
Exactly.
my wind down routine is after I close the laptop, I generally head to bed, grab my phone, and I know they say it's terrible, but with my ADHD it works. And I watch reels and stuff like that, and I go down these rabbit holes until I fall asleep and I lay my phone down. So I totally get that. So
All right. Well,
awesome.
thank you.
Good share though. I appreciate you bringing that up because that's a branded background and things like that can still do wonders and still keep people engaged. So that's a great idea. All right, Robin, you are next. What's on your mind, Robin?
Hi, I teach in the online space. I've been teaching for close to 20 years online, and I'm always looking for creative ways to engage students. And I started messing around with Notebook LM several months ago around, doing some of these podcasts and because of my area in social work and being a content expert in some of these spaces, I came across this and I thought, oh, this is like amazing because it can actually generate it. I'm the expert that goes in, makes sure it's correct information, make sure it's
Hmm.
cited with some academic resources to post online. My question is, I'm hearing about monetizing some of this. For many, many years, I have been the leader in our department in online space. But it's my mind thinking like all these freebies and all of the stuff that I help others do and I do for free and I show them, like I can see where this could potentially be an area in online courses that I could be monetizing and
Hmm.
for extra. Do you know of anybody who's done something like this in the academic space, or would I be better off? I mean, because I can think of other ways that I can do this. Maybe it's not, maybe it's marketing to, I don't know, it could be community-based services or
Sure.
different places that need trainings. It seem like a viable, I don't know.
Yeah, so yes, I know a number of educators who are now monetizing expertise and content and things like that. Although most of them are not necessarily monetizing it inside of the educational institution they're at, if that makes sense. They're
Yeah.
doing it outside as an expert. So,
Okay.
what's your field of study? You may have told me, Robin, and I forgot. What's your field of
Social
study?
work.
Okay. So in that case, imagine creating and curating tremendous content around social work that would be of value to social workers, people getting educated in social work, all of those related things. And I would spend some time with ChatGPT really identifying that audience. But absolutely, there's a market there to do that. Let me give you an example of one that's a little bit different, but how a niche market can really work. I actually have a friend whose mom is into a craft style called felting. I'm not even sure I fully understand it, but basically you take pieces of felt and cut things out and overlay them, and I don't totally understand it. His mother-in-law, with his help, by putting out felting trainings, and this was about 2 years ago, so I'm not sure where he's at today, but they were averaging over $2,000 a month in revenue from people paying them to have access to their video library, teaching basic felting. I can tell you my wife, who's recently picked up embroidery in the last year, spends what I consider to be an obscene amount of money. It's not in the big picture, but on buying embroidery kits that are all set and all done. And I know that's a little different than social work, but literally because that's how she's learning and working through that process. So anytime you can teach people about something, and I guess that's why I give those two examples,
Okay.
there's an opportunity to monetize that regardless of what that subject matter is, because all you really need to do really well when you think of it, if you could have 100 people, or I'm sorry, 1,000 people a year give you $100, that's a six-figure personal income
Yeah.
from what could potentially be a side hustle.
Yeah.
There's not
And
a
I see it
niche
with
in the
my,
world that doesn't have a few thousand people that are interested in it.
yeah. My specific area is around trauma-informed practice and
Hmm.
child welfare. And so, I can see this being something, I can do this, for hospitals or,
Hmm.
nonprofits or anybody that serves children and families and different things like that. Um, yeah. It with the online piece also in one of your trainings and some of the stuff that I've watched, I also last semester created a custom GPT where I have students, master's level students interacting with a GPT that is like a kid who's in foster care.
Oh,
And
I
they
love
have
that idea.
conversations and have to use trauma-informed skills and practices with the child. And I actually had students say that it was the most authentic experience that they've had in the social work program to date. And so I'm doing a research study. I'm actually looking at the the conversational piece in ChatGPT and comparing that to 11 Labs conversational AI or the text-based versus conversational AI. And I'm going to look at that over the fall. So this has been tremendously helpful and even orienting me around 11 Labs. Um, so, okay. All
Well,
right.
and
So there's
again, what
possibilities.
what you're describing there is an entire my entrepreneurial mind just exploded when you describe that. Imagine having a series of similar tools that you simply made available on a subscription basis for people. I mean, especially with those types of testimonials, Robin, with people telling you, and I believe what they're saying. I mean, it would create an incredibly authentic like experience, far better than a book or some interactive website or something like that would be far, far better. And what an incredible tool for helping teach those necessary skills. That again, I think is so incredibly monetizable, if that's a word. I love that idea. So
All right, good.
thank you,
Well,
Robin. I
maybe we could
appreciate it.
talk again. All right. Yeah.
Anytime. No, one of the things I love about these guys, you guys have such, I mean, just even today, the ideas that have come up, the little snippets that have come up, have added things to my perspective on this. And it's so amazing. I love this. Just you're up next. What's on your mind?
Hey, Jonathan. Just this is a kind of quick one, but when you get to the point where you're deploying these podcasts to all of the different services, I missed that part, but is there any friction to be aware of, or is that just pretty straightforward? Do you have to have accounts set up ahead of time, or Like,
We're actually
how
going to go over that tomorrow. I'm going to give you guys a
okay.
full step-by-step SOP on how to do it. It's not very difficult once the accounts are set up, which is pretty simple and straightforward. Basically, you upload to a distribution service, and there are a number of them out there, and then it sends it out to all the other services. So once you make the connections, the first time when you set up a new podcast, it takes a few minutes. You've got to get everything set up. But
Sure.
once you have it set up, like my podcast, it goes out every Friday at 10 in the morning. It's like clockwork. In fact, I don't even publish it. My assistant does. She literally uploads the video to YouTube and schedules it, and then she has an audio file that she uploads and schedules, and that's it. It actually goes live, and she's often not even at work when it goes live because she just uploads it the day before and schedules it, and then it immediately shows up on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify and everywhere else.
And are those typically paid services or?
They're both free and paid services that do that, depending on the features that you want. We'll cover a handful of them tomorrow. Like everything else, there's a lot of different ways to do that, but we'll cover a handful of those services. What I typically recommend is when you're getting started, focus on one of the free services until you build up some revenue, and then often the paid services minimize labor and do some more things for you to help save you some time. And when you get busier, then it's a great time to add some of those in.
Okay. And then one more thing, just on that topic of the SSDs that you use or the storage, I use these little guys from Samsung, and they're phenomenal. You can see how small that is. That's an 8 terabyte.
Actually, you don't have your video on, but I trust you when you say that.
Oh.
So yeah. So yeah, no, the ability now that we've got for storage and the costs are just, I mean, it was only a few years ago I bought a 14 terabyte storage area network for my office and paid like $3,000 for it. I can now buy 14 terabyte of disk for probably $500 if I
Yeah,
shopped
exactly.
hard enough.
This one's called a
So
T7, by the way. So
yeah, that's what I have is the T7. Yeah, it's amazing.
good deal.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Just. I appreciate it. All right. Next, we've got up. Am I saying a beer? Am I saying that correct?
Yeah, you tried.
I tried. I probably messed it. I apologize. What's on your mind?
Yeah, so I'm into well, I'm trying to start. I've started my podcast. Well, at least I've done an introductory one. I'm a psychologist, and I just wanted to know about videos. I know people have been asking you about it. You were suggesting audiograms. I don't find audiograms engaging, me personally. So I was
Sure.
wondering so I have my transcript and I upload that to Buzzsprout or one of those.
Yep.
But if I did an avatar, is that what you're talking about when you're saying videos? I had an avatar talking as if there's,
Correct. Yeah,
is that
either one that looks like you that you've created or a stock avatar that you're using. Yes.
and could that be done in Canvas or is that not good enough?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, you're going to need to be using, a service that does those. It's probably going to have to go something like a HeyGen or something like that, which may be able to do it. I've never had any luck with HeyGen at all, so I can't speak to it. I seem to be the only person on earth that doesn't like their service. Everybody else seems to love them, but you'd probably need to go to a HeyGen or something like that. I just don't find. And this is me, like you said, you don't like audiograms.
Yeah.
I see AI videos of avatars and I immediately go, even if it is great content, I don't stick around long enough to find out because
Oh,
visually I get turned off. The avatars just aren't good enough. And so I'm like, or they're too good, and I'm like, well, yeah, whatever. So, but again, that's where it's, you got to know your audience because as we're talking, you and I may have slightly different perspectives. I listen to most of my podcasts when I'm walking or when I'm
yeah,
driving,
I do too.
in which case I don't care what's on the screen. And I admit, I listen to a lot of YouTube stuff while I'm driving. Notice I said I listen to it. I
Listen.
actually don't watch
Yeah.
it. I literally listen to it because trust me, when my wife's in the car, she makes sure I actually turn the phone upside down so I can't even
Yeah.
see what's on the screen.
Yeah.
But I still listen to a lot
You
of it
listen.
because I get 90+% of the value out of listening, and I can do it while I'm driving or walking or whatever. So I'm not saying video is not important. It absolutely can be. I
It is.
just don't
Yeah.
think we're quite at the spot that AI video is affordable enough and good enough if you combine those two variables to be able to be practical for most of us.
The reason why I say that is because I watch a lot of 48 hours crime
Yeah.
true crime, right? And then sometimes they have the audiogram of the actual, like they give
Yeah, like
more
yeah.
extent, they give more a longer version of the actual
Yeah.
video, the case. I just can't tune into that because I feel if I want to upload my podcast to YouTube, I want to see. I mean, for the people who are
Sure.
visually stimulated. So even if, because I'm not looking for perfection here, I'm just trying to give them something that they can
Something
look
to
at
do. Yeah.
other than the
Other than
audiogram
the
going
audiogram
on.
itself. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I was just wondering, the actual, could I not build it myself? Could I not
I don't know.
do,
I mean, not through like a ChatGPT. You're going to need a specialty
yeah, no.
service that does it. There's a brand new service that I shouldn't say it is not brand new. There is a new service that I just became aware of the other day. Let me see if I can find it here real quick. I think I had it in a tab, but I'm not sure. I've got to look here a minute.
Okay.
Got too many tabs open. Yes, here it is. So let me share my screen here real quick a minute. I am not real clear. I am not endorsing the service. I don't know anything about it.
I
I
know,
just
you're just
no,
giving
no. I just for
suggestions.
everybody they go, oh, Jonathan said get Jog. No, I don't
No,
know.
no, no, we won't
So
do that. Well, I won't do
this service
that.
is called Jog AI,
Okay. Ah,
Jogg. I'm sorry. Um, and it's so I've just bought it on AppSumo. I think it's still out here. Let me look. Because one of my customers actually recommended it. He said it's really good. So, oh, it's gone. Okay, it was on here. So with Jog, this is supposed to be able to do it, but even here, th- you can't hear that,
yeah, yeah.
but it's not right. It's just not. I mean, the image is right, the video is right, but it's not right. I
Mm,
can't tell you immediately when I hear that, I'm like, no, it's not right.
mm,
And I'm not saying Jog's the only solution. There's a lot of them that are out there. But the benefit of Jog is like I just bought a lifetime license for like $100. Now I can only do so many videos a month, but that type of thing would work out. It may, for your needs, that may be sufficient. You may not need any more than that. That may give you,
yeah, yeah.
what you need. You may be able to pick an avatar and go, let's grab Nathan here in the car.
Yeah,
And
I don't even, I want it to look more like a cartoon character. So I don't even want it to look like an
gotcha.
actual, I want it to be just something someone can look at for people who, because I also lecture and I know that for my students, different things stimulate them.
Sure.
Sometimes just listening, I like listening,
Now one thing you
but
could do
yeah,
with Canva that would work is if you had a series of images, like animated images. So like if you went
yeah,
into
that's what I'd
Midjourney and
like.
you said, okay, I've got a 20-minute podcast and I'm going to change an image every 10 seconds, and therefore I need 6 per minute. So I need 120 images. You could go into Canva and you could do something like that pretty
Okay,
easily.
fine.
If
Yes,
you
that's what I
if
want
you
to
were
do.
on early when we started, and I have to run here in just a minute, but
Fine.
the countdown timer that I did all that in Canva.
Okay, fine.
So, guys,
Beautiful.
thank you
Thank
so
you
much. You've
so
been
much.
amazing today with all
Thank
your stuff. I've got a replay I'll get posted. We've got tons of stuff we need to work on. I will go ahead and add a fourth session to go through all these things. I want to thank you guys for the amazing input and suggestions. Literally, I'm thinking of things I hadn't thought about before when we started this. So we will have the replay up in a couple hours. Check that replay link. We'll see you tomorrow. Same time, we'll have updates on how we get everything posted and how we go live. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.